So, and because
I don't know. Maybe I just hear it sometimes.
Oh, it did. Oh, Darren. Fingers. Okay, it's
Yeah, I
on
thought the kid down in the front row had it. Aaron, I just want Aaron to know that I found my gavel. I thought he had it for a minute. At this time, I'll call the October 14th City Council meeting to order. Would you all please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Ms. Zito, would you call roll, please?
Vice Mayor Borelli.
Here.
Mayor Hagan.
Here.
Councilmember Patton.
Here.
Councilmember Thomas.
Here.
Councilmember Wilkins.
Here.
Thank you. At this time, we'll go on to item 3, which is announcements and presentations to the public. Chief Heller will make a presentation on our Scoop-Off winning charity check. We got also Super Scooper Luke Gardeau, our police officer who is the Super Scooper, is here. So we'll explain that in just a minute.
Mayor, council, public, yeah, this is our Super Scooper, Officer Goodell. So we attended an event at Baskin-Robbins. The Baskin-Robbins folks put on the event to help the Big Brothers Big Sisters charity, as well as they presented this scoop-off event, which we designated Luke as our guy. We weren't sure how or what was going to happen, but Luke stepped in there and apparently came just short of the world record. Is that? Yep,
Oh, no way.
that's right. So it was right near as the King Fire was getting more contained. So we had some first responder. The idea was to have a bunch of first responders. We had enough there to field a competition, and it worked out very well. Everybody had fun. Fun was had by all. A lot of children there getting their faces painted. There were cheerleaders and all kinds of good stuff. So anyway, as a result of this, we were provided from Baskin-Robbins $250 charitable donation to choose who we wanted to give that to. And I mean, there's so many, but we decided to present it to the Community Resource Center, and Melissa from the CRC is here on their behalf to accept. And we just want to, thank them for their partnership and for their model of community outreach now with a more field-based approach, which we were just talking seems to be going pretty well. So again, thank you to the CRC. We're glad to help any way we can. And on behalf of Baskin-Robbins, the police department, the city, and Super Scooper, thank you very much. What are you presenting?
I'm working with those super muscles. Where am I going? Sorry. Where are we waiting? Oh.
Here, I'll take one.
I've got one from the backside.
Yeah, that's not going to work.
Remember when we used to have cameras?
Everybody has a camera in here.
One more, ready? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, Chief, you have a second announcement if you want to make that or introduce.
Actually, before you go on, Mr. Mayor, I just have to put a shout out. That was the best grand opening I've ever been to. It was so much fun. And Mr. Mayor, you all also were awesome at that event. But
Thank
just
you.
a big thank you to Baskin-Robbins and our police department for taking part.
In case any of you haven't been there, it's the same location behind
On Broadway?
McDonald's on Broadway. And they've got their great Tuesday night event where sale for the ice cream's on sale, and it's very for the kids and their families.
Kids and
so-
the senior citizens go.
Yes, but it is. Again, this is and Cruz, stand up, Cruz. I want people to know this is the father of Ryan, and the two of them have several of these franchises, and they chose to come back to Placerville. He used to have the flower shop over by the old Safeway store on Placerville Drive, and we appreciate you guys staying in business in this community and supporting this community like you have. Thank you very much.
I'm going to turn it over to Commander Nida for the app presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I would like to give a brief demonstration about our app. The police department has a new app that we just recently got up and going. Sorry, I'm getting my equipment working here. So on the screen, this is a screenshot. It's really exciting to have this capability within the city of Placerville. And you might ask why we are doing this for the, hang on one second, there we go. All right, get everything working. Easy and direct communication between the police department and the community. We want it to be, in this age of social media, we want to be there for you guys and be able to reach out in ways that everyone's doing it. The mic. Now can you hear me? Nope, still nothing. I talk loud, but the mic's not picking me up. Now can you hear me?
Yes.
Now can you hear me? All right, now we're good.
Keep it close. There you go.
Okay. So back to communication with the community. That's the reason to have this, is for to be able to have the community directly communicate to the police department and vice versa. The app has several modules. As you'll see, I'll show it to you later, all these buttons that are on the app, but these are all the capabilities that it has. So crime mapping, anonymous crime reporting, sex offender mapping, school resource officer, commend police officer, volunteer, links to our social media sites, links to other first responder sites and press releases. I'll go through a few of them, and then at the end, I'm going to show a demonstration of how to use it. So. When you report an issue, this is what the screen looks like when you report an issue, and these are the items that can be reported up there. The big thing about this, it's not for 911, it's not for something that's in progress at the time. This has been up and running for a little bit, and we have had some things that are in progress that people are reporting. What the route is when you report something via this stream is that it's an email sent to myself and other people in the police department. And I don't get my emails. I'm not sitting looking at my emails all the time, and I don't think anyone is. So if it's something that's in progress that you want immediate response for, please dial 911 or our dispatch number at 530-642-5280. That's the best response. If this is something along these lines where abandoned vehicles, graffiti, all that type of stuff, that's the type of items that we want reported. So, and you can do it anonymously, or you can put your information in, either way. And if you want to do anonymously, that's fine, but I like to get back to the people and kind of give them closure as to what we've done with the problem. Crime mapping availability. So it shows reportable crimes within the city of Placerville within the last 6 months, last year, last week. So you can kind of change it and modify it. And you can click on each of those icons. It shows vehicle thefts, burglaries, robberies that have occurred within that time frame. Our school resource officer function allows people at the schools, the kids, teachers, the parents, to report an issue to the SRO, Jason Alger. So it will, we can allow a text to him, or we can allow an email to him. And so it's an easy way to communicate, and that's another anonymous function or not. So we've already had some issues that have been raised to him, and he's been utilizing that. Property inventory. I really like this section of it. I think this is very, very valuable for everybody who's either been a victim of a property crime, and the police show up and we're asking, well, what did the ring look like? What's the serial number of the chainsaw that was stolen? you don't have that information. Normally, you don't have pictures of all your jewelry, or you don't have your serial numbers written down. This function is awesome. So you can catalog all your property, take pictures of it, get the serial numbers, creates a catalog. You can email that catalog to yourself or send it off into your cloud for your iCloud people out there, although I don't know how to get my information out of my cloud. I think it's a black cloud. But you can always have that information, so when that you do lose your property, whether it be a fire, for instance, of recent times, or property crimes where people steal something, you can give that information to the police or to your insurance, and it's easily, we can now go to pawn shops and say, this is what it is, and try to track down your property. So I love this part of the app. Volunteer opportunities. We're always looking for volunteers. So of course there's going to be a button on our app for volunteer opportunities. So if you're interested, just click on this button. Social media sites. We are on Twitter and Facebook and Nixle. So if you are on any of those social media sites, please follow us, the Placerville Police Department. And also you can link to those sites and what we're doing on those sites from the app. The directory, so this is what the button looks like on the actual module, and then this is what will come up when you click on the directory button right there. So if there's, for instance, it has Officer Godow. If you want to contact Officer Godow, it has his information, and tell him what a great super scooper he is. You can email him and let him know. Our web links and our press releases. So this was a good one, the web links for the King Fire that we had, or the Sand Fire. There is a fire web link, so other local fire agencies or the state CAL FIRE, we have links to their web addresses, and it just takes you right to their websites. So there's no trying to go to Google and what's the local one and all that kind of stuff. We have it right there for everybody. And other law enforcement agencies, emergency preparedness stuff, all that kind of, City of Placerville, we have you guys on there. Our press releases, all of our press releases that go out, we also put them on here so you can link to the press releases as well. So now, what do you need to do? You need to go to your Google iPlay or Google Play or the App Store and download this app. It is free, and all you have to do is click install, and it installs. Search for Placerville Police Department, or Placerville Police, or Placerville PD, all those things. I have an Apple, so I searched under all of those, and it came up under all of those. So now I will switch over to live, all this technical stuff. It takes a second for it to go. And I'll actually hook up to my phone and show you some of the capabilities of this on a live function. So any of the council members, did you have a question about anything specifically that I can bring up for you? So this is a live, such as like the crime mapping. I'll bring that up. So that's what it looks like when you first bring it up. I can spread it out like this, and then I can,
How do we know what the different circles mean?
so you can touch them, and it tells you what it was.
Cool.
And just go to each one. So nice little feature there. So you can kind of keep track of what's happening in the city. And this is for the city of Placerville itself. Now, as opposed to the sex offender site, this is 95667, so that's beyond just the city limits. So it looks like initially that you're like, oh my gosh, we've got a lot of sex offenders. No, we don't have that many. We have too many. I think one is too many. But you can just click on them, and it gives the information out right there. Now, this is all Megan's Law stuff. So it's all that's already out there, and we just have made it easily available to all the public. Our social media sites. Let's see if it's stuck in processing. So there it is. There's our Facebook page. So it's as easy as that. Any other questions from the council about it?
No, I just wanted to make acknowledgement that today you guys put out a press release regarding a grant, I believe, and so we're making that announcement later today, or somebody will be making the announcement, maybe the chief a little later, but that'd be great to hear that.
There's the there's the press release right there
There you
on
go.
Grant.
Now, I assume it went to the Mountain Democrat also, but may not have to because it went out on Facebook, so I don't know if
Now my
they'll.
mom's texting
Oh,
me. when he-
never mind.
I'm home.
Wendy's here. She'll make sure it gets reported on.
Okay, any other questions from council?
Comments, questions?
Just really impressive. That's incredible. What a fabulous tool for our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Kim. That was a great presentation, too. Thank you.
Great.
Now I just have to get a phone that'll do this.
Yes.
My,
Smartphone.
my flip phone is incapable.
All right. Well, thank you very much. So at this time, I'll move on to the next
Mayor?
item.
Mayor,
Yes.
there's one more item that's not on there, just this, we put before you that Pierre would like to announce,
Okay.
the SACOG MTP meeting coming up, so if that's okay.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to make an announcement that the Sacramento Area Council of Governments, also known as SACOG, they will be holding a what's titled "What Will Our Region Look Like in 20 Years?" Public workshop, and that's going to be November 5th from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m. At the El Dorado County Fairgrounds. And basically it's going to feature primarily an open house format that will allow residents to drop in at any time and give input about the travel choices they would like to have in the area while providing them with information on how SACOG's transportation plan is funded. And it's basically, SACOG is implementing their preparation of what's called the Metropolitan Transportation Plan Sustainable Community Strategy, the MTP/SCS. It's a long-range, 20-year regional plan for transportation projects, such as bikeways, roadways, sidewalks, and transit projects. In order to provide people with a variety of efficient transportation options, the MTP considers where jobs, housing, services are located both today and into the future. So the plan will also include a financial forecast that shows the transportation projects in the area can reasonably be funded over the course of 20 years. Some of the major outcomes of SACOG's Metropolitan Transportation Plan will include improving air quality, reducing traffic congestion, and reducing greenhouse gases. Just for the sake of the public that may not understand what SACOG is, it's basically it's a group of 22 member cities and 6 member counties. And so we're a member of the SACOG, and so we're part of that program, and I encourage everybody to attend that is interested in a more regional approach to transportation planning. The council members were provided copies of the flyer. There's some flyers there on the back of the table if anybody's interested in attending. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
You're welcome. Okay. There was no closed session this evening, so at this point, changes in the agenda or adoption of the agenda, please.
Move for the adoption?
Second.
So moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we have no ceremonial matters scheduled this evening. Public comment time. It'll be brief, non-agenda items. Allowed 3 minutes. Please don't slander anybody. Please don't go over your time. I will shut you off. And if there's any written material, please give a copy to the city clerk for distribution to the council. At this point, we'll start with written communications. Do we have any written communications?
No.
That are not, okay. No written communications, so I'll open up the mic at this time for oral communications on items not on our agenda tonight. Okay. Please state your name for the record.
Hi, I'm Sue Cooper,
Okay.
and so I just wanted to ask the council to perhaps amend the R1 zoning ordinance against allowing the keeping of hens, small-scale hens, adopting sort of a backyard hen-keeping ordinance. Sacramento recently passed one, Placer County has one, and it seems like it's a good fit here because it's a rural county. And so what happened, what kind of brings me here is we were looking up, we bought some property on 3/4 of an acre, and we were trying to look up ordinances if we can keep a couple of hens for egg laying. We couldn't find a straight answer, so we just went for it and built a coop, and we had a couple of hens. And then our neighbor did some looking and called the city and didn't like that we had the hens, so we had to rehome them. Anyways, so it was not good. But the ordinance that Sacramento has adopted has, it limits the number of hens to only 3 hens. The enclosure needs to be 20 feet from your neighbor's property. It requires permit fees per hen, so it would be, sort of a little revenue generator.
Not
No
really,
res-
but that's okay.
Little teeny, the coffee fund.
Yeah.
Of course, no roosters, no slaughtering, of course. And then it would require an enclosed coop, so no free range. But it's kind of a little movement now. People are getting into having hens, and there's really cool coops that you can make. And anyways, I just thought it would be fun, and
Okay.
we'd like to get our hens back.
Thank
so.
you. If you've got a copy of that ordinance for Sacramento, you could give it to this gentleman right over here.
Okay,
And
I
then-
don't have a copy, but
That's
I
okay. You can
submit
email it
later.
to him. He'll give you his address.
Awesome.
Thank you. Okay.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and City Council and staff. My name is Cindy Savage, and I just came tonight because I don't know if you are aware of this, but probably 45 to 55% of the people that live in this city are introverts. I'm one of them. And so when I come down here, it's rare, and it's really not my favorite thing to do, but I just assume that you know that there's a vast cloud of people like me in Placerville that you don't hear from very often, and that you probably should hear more often from. And I just wanted you to know that sometimes when you get a long list of people that are signing petitions for things, whether it's 50 people or 800 people, that sometimes those petitions don't really represent the county, or the city, excuse me, in lots of different ways. One way is, and I've noticed, is that people will sign a petition because somebody tells them something that has no connection to the truth. And if you want to check that out, you can check out YouTube, and you'll see people that have signed supporting ISIS from Harvard, And so I just urge you to take that into consideration, and some way I'd like to be better connected in a way that I don't have to get up here and talk to you. But I thought I would do it tonight. I want you to know that it's really hard for me as an introvert to be involved in a divisive, confrontational type of a situation. And I know that's happened here at the council, and I know it's also happened in the little discussion groups that the council has put together so citizens can talk about things. And really, even coming to the city council like tonight, I probably will not even get to sleep. It is so difficult for me. So know that, and just know that you'll hear from me, and I'll try to keep posted more on what's going on. And know that you are supported and you're voted for by more than just the people that show up here time after time, but there is a cloud of people that vote for you and that really care about Placerville. Thank you for considering that.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Bill Roby, the director of the El Dorado Community Foundation. It's a real pleasure to be here this evening to introduce a phenomenal individual within our community. This is Valerie Gaiman. Valerie with Kimmy Vernon have been virtually a two-woman fundraising team for the King Fire. And I'm going to turn it over to Valerie to explain to you what she's been doing. I just want to add that it is really rare in our community when one person becomes so dedicated to an endeavor, and this woman has become dedicated. She's spending almost every Saturday and Sunday away from her family, standing out in the hot weather that we've had, raising funds for the families that have suffered from the King Fire. Valerie.
Thank you, Bill. Hi, I'm Valerie, and like Bill said, I'm part of a small team, but a very monumental team. What we're doing, and we've already completed half of our Fill the Boot campaign. Basically, what we're doing is we're out there with signs, a couple people, maybe just me, And we're waving boots and signs and collecting
Talk
donations.
into the mic.
Sorry,
Thanks.
thank you. First time here.
That's okay.
But we're waving these boots and we're handing out signs and we're just asking for people to donate. 100% of every single dollar goes to the victims of the King and Sand fires. And we're just super dedicated. We're super excited and we're hurt by the people who lost everything. I mean, they lost everything they held dear. Everything in their home was there for a reason. And, you know, you look around your house, okay, I have 5 minutes. Grab my people, grab my papers, but everything else is gone. Everything is gone. So what we're trying to do is raise as many dollars as possible. So we have this Fill the Boot campaign. We've completed 3 stops so far. Next 3 stops are Cal Fire Station. We have the blessing of Mike Caslin, the Cal Fire Chief, and so he's given us 3 more stations to our tour. We're going to be visiting the El Dorado Fire Station on next Saturday, and then next Sunday we'll be in Garden Valley, and the following Saturday, I think the 25th, we'll be at Cameron Park off of Cambridge or Country Club, one of the two, but it's station number 25. Anyway, that will finish our Fill the Boot campaign, and at the very end, November 1st, we're going to celebrate with the community at the Fireman's Hall, and that has been graciously donated to us. No fees involved. There are no hard costs to our fundraiser. We haven't had to spend a dime on anything, not even these flyers. They've all been donated. Signs have been donated. People are coming. Everything's donated. But we're going to celebrate at the Fireman's Hall with a ice cream social where we'll have face painting. We'll have princesses and a prince. We'll have live local music, at least 5 bands, all donating their time, at least an hour per band. And we're also going to have ice cream. We're going to ask for a $5 donation per scoop, and if they want it in a cone, it'll be an additional donation. But we're still trying to fundraise with our celebration, but we're also going to, you know, just celebrate and be with the firemen and their families and everybody who fought so hard and continues to fight hard. There's another fire on 80, you know, and this is the beginning, if not even close to the end of, you know, the fire season this year. And this is going to happen next year and then year after. I'm sorry?
What's the date again?
The date of the social,
fundraiser?
November 1st at the Fireman's Hall from 3 o'clock p.m. to 9 o'clock p.m. We're going to have silent auctions, lots of goodies there. There's a Thomas Kincaid painting. There's a very, very expensive puppy. Lots of things are going to be up for auction. But we're also going to have lots of raffle items, free goodies for the kids, carnival games. I mean, a lot of people have come together.
Thank
and
you.
a lot of people in this community. I'm sorry. I know.
That's okay.
I'm sorry.
No, I just have to keep you to 3 minutes like I do everybody else.
I understand.
But thank you very much.
Thank
And
you.
the question, you said Station 25. That's
Station 25
Station
is in Cameron
25
Park.
is on Main Street.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Cameron Park,
In Placerville.
89.
It's
89.
on
Thank you very
Sacramento
much.
Street, I
Sorry.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, and thank you for all your effort.
You're welcome.
Hi, Susan Rodman, Placerville resident. I have some questions about our sewer and water rate increases. First, a little history. Sewer and water rates have been steadily increasing since 2005, with a major increase beginning in 2009-2010 that continues through the present increase. The major rationale given for those increases were, number one, payments on the $44 million sewer plant, wastewater treatment plant debt. Number two, repair, replacement, and maintenance of the rust-filled and inadequate water lines. $500,000 was said to be needed. Repair, replacement, and maintenance of failing sewer lines and collapsing Orangeburg pipes. Another $500,000 was stated to be needed. And now, after 4 years of both sewer and water rate increases, passage of Measure H to provide additional funding for water and sewer infrastructure and a discount to ratepayers, the latest estimated funding needed to repair water sewer infrastructure that I heard is over $19 million. It's kind of odd that that's the same number given as what we need to repair our streets. So I have 3 questions that I'd like to have you answer. How much of these water rate increases have actually been used to replace and repair Placerville's rust-clogged and inadequate water lines? How many feet, miles of water lines have been improved and replaced? How many are left? And how much, number 2, is how much of these sewer rate increases have been used for sewer line improvements? And how many miles or feet of Orangeburg sewer pipes have been replaced? How many miles of Orangeburg pipe are left? And number 3, how much of these rate increases have been used to restore city employee salaries to pre-recession levels? Every public notice I get from the city of Placerville to announce either a sewer rate increase or a water rate increase reads basically the same. It has a history of the city council meetings where these rate increases were passed, the consumer price index increase, that Measure H was passed in November 2010, tables with new rates and old rates, and the Measure H discounts. What is glaringly absent is a report on accomplishments with our money. It is the ratepayers' money you are collecting and spending. I think inquiring ratepayers would like to know how you are using our money. In fact, we have a right to know what you have done, are doing, and propose to do with our money to address rusted and inadequate water pipes and rotten and collapsing sewer pipes. Please answer these 3 questions.
Thank you.
Evelyn Veerkamp, Placerville. I would like to take my 3 minutes to speak about some of the Measure K misinformation which has been disseminated. And I have a couple of very short...
Are we talking about yes or no?
We're talking about Measure K.
Okay.
Measure K is simple. Placerville residents, if it is passed, will get the opportunity to decide on roundabouts just as they already do with the city's proposed sales tax increase.
This is on the agenda later on?
No, it's not.
Oh, it's not?
An ordinance is on the agenda. Measure K, I don't believe, is.
Okay.
Is that part of my 3 minutes? Thank you.
It
Measure
depends on how
K
quick
is
you are,
short.
so-
It's only 130 words, so it can be read. Measure K has been widely misrepresented by a group of people, including 3 former Placerville mayors, who have been spreading scary stories and telling the public that Measure K would endanger private property rights and would jeopardize features like the Marshall Hospital circular driveway and the Government Center Building C driveway. Now, fully 19 weeks after Measure K qualified for the ballot, Councillor Thomas thought to ask for a professional opinion. As it turns out, what we have been saying all along is correct. Measure K would only apply to public streets and public roadways, meaning, for example, that the circular roadway around Marshall Hospital and the Government Center Building C would not be affected. And I have one simple question, and I don't expect an answer because it's strictly rhetorical. And that is, why have Measure K opponents been talking about fabrications, avoiding the issue that really matters to them and which was identified by Councillor Thomas on July 8th, and that was specifically the Western Placerville interchange? Thank you.
Okay. And
Good evening, Council. I'd just like the public to understand a few things. I am one of 3 of Measure K, and I am not a former mayor, nor am I a former council person.
And you are Jackie?
I am Jackie No.
Thanks.
I would like the people to know they already have a choice. You call your representative, and you call them, and you email them, and you show up here, and that's representative government. You're being misled if you think you don't have a choice. And lastly, the writers of Measure K don't get to interpret Measure K. It says what it says, and if it's not clear, it will be interpreted by a court, which is the problem. Thank you.
Marion Washburn, Azalea Lane. Since I've been challenged, I'll give a very quick retort. The No on Measure K committee did invite the Yes group for a public debate that would include citizens, but not candidates running for council currently. The Yes on Measure K group declined to participate in public debate. And I think that's where the issues that were spoken of should be discussed in full, because obviously people would like to know. Those were all legitimate issues that Mrs. Veerkamp raised, and they deserve complete answers. But clearly, the 3 minutes is not a good forum to discuss back and forth the pros and cons. But they were invited to a public debate, and they refused to participate.
Thank you. Any additional comments? You do recall that if it's regarding the ordinance, it'll be on later tonight. You may also be talking on that.
I'm Mickey Kaiserman, a resident of Placerville. I want to thank all of the city council members for representing the people of Placerville. The electorate of Placerville has voted all 5 of you in as members of the city council for a 4-year term. Some of you are running for re-election, and some of you will be up for re-election in 2 years. Your job is to represent the citizens of Placerville, utilizing the city employees and outside experts on issues that affect the city, and it is up to you to ask questions and to make informed decisions. You take comments from the public on citywide issues. You also represent the people that elected you, whether or not those members of the electorate show up at city council meetings to voice their opinions. Some of them have talked to you personally. I'm one of them. If the council members do not represent the electorate, then they will be voted out of office in the 4-year election cycle. I am asking each council member to remember the voters that elected you. The silent majority that does not come to town meetings or city council meetings, but wants to be heard through you, the city council, that makes the decisions for the good of the community. So I'm asking each and every one of you to vote for what is right tonight for the good of the city. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Seeing nobody else approaching the bench. Dave, you got to be a little quicker. I know you're getting old, just like me.
It just came to the awareness of the people in the last day or two that Wendy, I guess, had posted on her blog site that Pierre had made a comment that it was incorrect. Well, he didn't say it was incorrect, but he clarified that the roads that are referred to in Measure K is a public road and not a private road. At least that's the way I've heard. I haven't looked at your blog, but that's what I heard.
So you haven't
said.
looked at it and you haven't read Pierre's
No, but I've
statements?
been told that that's what was said.
Okay.
If it isn't, I'd like clarification, and if I could get it from Pierre or
Then I would suggest you
John
give him a
Driscoll.
call.
Well, I'd like the people to hear it.
Well, I'm sorry.
Okay. Yeah, I guess.
Thank you. City attorney can maybe respond to that, but again, I'll wait a second until we get all of the public comments done. Any additional public comments?
Hi, my name's Steve No. I support the current process of using planning commissions and for the public to voice their opinion through the process that is currently in place instead of putting it to a public vote to just where people are basically on general. People as a group are not as smart as they'd like because you just end up with average. If you put everybody together, you end up average. That's why we hire experts, and they are to improve our city through their method. So I think the current process works. We should stick with it. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thanks. I want you to know that most of the city council members are average. We are not experts. All right, I'm going to stop the public comment at this point, and I'm going to allow or ask the city manager to make a comment regarding Dave's concerns about, he heard something about something regarding something that a council person said, and I just, Mr. No, city attorney. I'm sorry. I did. Well, like I said, I'm
Well,
not
I'm just
one
an
of the,
average city attorney.
yeah,
So
and I'm obviously just an average mayor. Yes,
so
sir.
you want my take on Measure K? Is that
I don't know what that was the question. I think the question was.
let me just see if I can cover what the
I think
question
it
is
was
and what
yeah,
people are
related to public versus private
Right.
streets and what
And-
comes before the city council and the planning commission versus public versus private.
Despite one of the, and in all due respect to that speaker, comments, Measure K is not really very simple. It's rather ambiguous, and it's confusing in some respects. The issue of whether it applies to public streets, public and private streets, or just public streets is one that is not terribly clear from the document itself. It refers, in the first sentence, I believe it is, to any public street, quote, or roadway. Public was used before, the term public was used before the term street, but not before the term roadway. Was that intentional to exclude public from restricting roadways so that that could include both private and public? It's uncertain as to whether or not it means that. You know, and I'll kind of give you my opinion, what I think it means, but by no means do I think it is dogmatic. The measure itself, in very general terms, talks about improvements where the city cannot use specification standards or requirements that require traffic circles, roundabouts, or similar features. But again, does not restrict them in that next sentence to public. It's left open for interpretation. The last sentence is also somewhat perplexing in the sense that it prohibits the city from approving a project to construct any roundabouts or similar features as a condition of approval of any project or the issuance of any permit or permission unless such project is approved by popular vote. The term project is used in that sentence 3 times, and in the first 2 occasions has what appears to be different meanings. One, it refers to the term project as a project for a traffic circle. The second use of the term project is more of an overall project that includes the project for the traffic circle. And then it goes on to say the project then must be approved by popular vote. Arguably, it could mean that the entire project, not just the traffic circle portion, must be approved by popular vote. It's unclear. So when asked if the city would consider, if this were to pass, the city would consider approving a project. Well, let me back up for a minute. First, I think it's very clear that it does prohibit any sort of roundabout or similar device on public property, public roadways. Does it apply to such a feature on a private roadway or private property? If a developer wanted to come in and the streets were not eventually going to be dedicated to the city and put one within a subdivision, for example, or some other feature within a site development. I would take the position, if asked, that the city go ahead and approve that and take the position that Measure K does not restrict that or prohibit that. Having said that, I would also tell the city we'd better get an indemnity agreement from that particular developer or applicant, because I can't guarantee you you're not going to get sued, and I can't guarantee you that they won't win in court if you do get sued, because the measure is unclear. I'd like to think that a court would use the rules of narrow construction in interpreting this and say that because of the genesis of the initiative and other things, that it really is intended just to mean public roads and public property. But I can't tell you that because I just can tell you the position I take, and I'm sure somebody who took a contrary position could conjure up arguments that might be persuasive otherwise. So, you know, if I have to give an opinion in a certain situation, indicated what it would be, but I can't tell you that I give you that with 100% surety because it is uncertain.
In fact, that uncertainty goes beyond the fact because the definitions of public-private road go beyond people. Many people own or live in communities that are, quote, quasi-public because they allow the public to traverse on them without some kind of a barricade. Number of private roads, probably like Eschaton, as a public-private roads. They maintain their own roads up there in certain areas, and those would be considered public-private roads. So by definition, that
That can certainly add to the ambiguity.
yes, thank you. All right. All right, we're going to move on now to item 8, which is consent calendar. Are there any items that board members or council members would like to have removed? Changed?
No.
Any comments? Okay. At this time, on items 8.1 through 8.10, are there any comments from the public regarding any of those items? Okay.
Sue Rodman, on 8.5, do we have or do we know whether we have freshwater mussels in our watersheds?
Go ahead.
That's what this day's about.
That's my question for this.
That's your
you know,
question. We'll get to your
We're
questions.
participating in a special freshwater mussels project, but do we have, or do we know if we have, the freshwater mussels?
I don't
that
even know
are-
if we got the flu tonight, but go ahead
Okay.
with the rest of your questions.
Okay, 8.7, I think is a great idea, and if we do this, we could probably solve some of our funding problems on tickets for cell phones alone. And on 8.9, I would like to know why we're doing Country Club Drive instead of the Canal Street in front of El Dorado High School, which certainly seems to me to be in worse shape and has more use.
Thank you. Any additional comments on items 8.1 through 8. Saying nobody approaching. I don't know if Dave is coming up or not. Okay. Seeing nobody approaching the dais, we'll bring it back to the council. I'm going to ask 3 quick questions. Mussels? Yes, no?
We do not know if Hangtown Creek contains freshwater mussels, and we do not know if Weber Creek contains freshwater mussels. I believe that the South Fork of the American River does contain freshwater mussels, and Folsom Lake does. And so this study is sort of a consortium that's being proposed by the Central Valley Clean Water Association. Placerville would like to participate in that consortium. I think it's approximately 42 different public agencies that are affected by this. Just real brief, basically the Environmental Protection Agency is basically going to be regulating effluent further in terms of the ammonia content in our wastewater treatment plant effluent, because the ammonia can affect native freshwater mussels. The mussels that they've been using are more of the eastern United States mussels, and so, the study involves a lot more than just the determination of whether or not we have mussels, but then what would be the protocols for determining what would be a safe level or what would be the upper limits of ammonia to be within the constituent of our effluent based on the species of mussels that may or may not occur in the receiving waters. And so, just in brief, that's sort of what it's about. Our participation, I believe it was about $4,900 to participate based on a tier system that is based on the amount of effluent that the wastewater treatment plant produces. So it's a very good deal for the city.
Good.
I think if the city were to do its own, we're probably looking at $20,000 or more.
Thank you. There was a question regarding 8.7 and that we were awarded this grant, and tonight we will be accepting it, I believe, unless one of the council members has additional comments. And I don't know the exact reason why we're doing Country Club, but my suspicion is it's $9,800, and the school might be several $100,000. But Mr. Ewell, can you answer that?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I agree with Ms. Rodman 100% that the Canal Street is in drastic need of repair, but it's to the extent where that would be a capital improvement project. What I'm referring to tonight is just a project that is part of our routine road maintenance that's just a little above the scope of work that we can handle with our existing resources. So we just need a little help doing a job that's a little more extensive than we anticipated.
Okay, thank you.
I'll move approval of the consent calendar.
Second.
So moved and second on the consent calendar. Please, roll call.
Vice Mayor Borelli.
Aye.
Mayor Hagan.
Aye.
Councilmember Patton.
Aye.
Councilmember Thomas.
Aye.
Councilmember Wilkins.
Aye.
Okay, we're on ordinances. Item 9.1, first reading of an ordinance eliminating the roundabout. Mr. Morris.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. In July, the council adopted a resolution, number 8230, eliminating the roundabout as an alternative for, it's not on? Better?
Yeah.
Eliminating a resolution in July, number 8230, eliminating a roundabout as an alternative for the Cedar Ravine Main Street, Clay Street intersection. Part of that resolution directed staff to come back to the council with an ordinance which would be codified and eliminate a roundabout as an option at that same intersection. I want to note that immediately on July 8th, following July 8th, the staff notified our consultant that was preparing the EIR for that project to pull the roundabout as an option from that, and that has been done. No further work has been done on the roundabout since that time. I also want to note that although we had not brought this back to the council until now, technically the roundabout was eliminated as of July 8th. This is just a formality that we are bringing forward as directed in that resolution. And therefore, that's the action that is before you tonight, is for you to consider introducing this ordinance tonight, which would codify and place in our zoning or our code that no further consideration of roundabout at that intersection would be done. So with that, I'll turn it back to council for any questions.
Any questions? Okay, at this point, we open up the public first. I'll open up at item 9.1 for public. Any comments from the public regarding this ordinance?
Dennis Thomas, business owner, resident of California, actually, Placerville. I didn't bring my notes, which was a mistake. I believe that the process is really important and that the EIR is a process for the public to be involved with that intersection. And by removing it from that process, you have eliminated the opportunity for, other than a small, loud group of people to influence you, you've disallowed a lot of the other community to participate in that process, to look at it, to see it through its fruition. And I think that's critically important to recognize that we have these processes in place for everybody to be involved. And I think we missed that. Now, when it comes to Measure K, it's irrelevant to that, as far as I'm concerned. They have the same right to do what they're doing as the rest of the community has a right to participate in the process of the EIR. And we didn't get to see the pictures of what it looked like. We didn't get to see all the aspects of how it will work with our community because it was removed. And I think that's to the detriment. I'm not in support or in favor of the roundabout, and I don't necessarily disagree with it because, honestly, we haven't been given all the information that could have been available to us to make that decision as a community. And I'm disappointed in that. So I wanted to encourage you to reconsider your action tonight and maybe look at it from a different perspective. Thank you.
Okay, twice in one night. I'm Cindy Savage. I'm a resident of Placerville and have been for some time. And I'm asking, this is a small thing. I know you can't change what has already been done, but you know, I didn't realize you guys were voting the roundabout down. I like a roundabout. It's pretty, it's functional, and it's safe. But I don't know if our roundabout would have been any of those things, but I never got a chance to really hear or see about it because, like a lot of the cloud of people in Placerville, I wasn't up on what was going on. But I do know since then, I paid attention to what's being said, and there's a lot of things that aren't true being said. The cork tree is not historic. The farmer's market is not going to disappear. And my other question is, what is really historic? I mean, it used to be a roundabout. I guess you all know that. But I'm asking you tonight to just say, the misinformation and the lies stop here. You can't change what's already done, but you can make a vote tonight to say, I'm not going any further with this. Lies stop here, and we're not going to be any part of it any further than this. So don't go any further with the ordinance. Stop it tonight, end it here. Let the next city council toil with it. Let everybody scream and yell. But please voice your opinion tonight to say, I'm not going any further with this craziness. Thank you very much.
Well, some of us have been around for the last 4 years, and some of us have looked at the drawings and have gone out and tried to measure where the roundabout would be. Sue Rodman, by the way, in case you didn't catch that. And we didn't like what we saw, and we thought it would be detrimental to our city. And so we raised that comment 4 years ago, 2 years ago, 1 year ago. It has been an ongoing controversial thing in this city for 4 long years. If other people chose not to get involved, I kind of think that's their problem. It's certainly been around and been talked about clear back when Machado was mayor. He and you, Wendy, voted to drop it. Then it came up again. And it was again voted to drop it. And then we did this EIR thing, and it came up again. And this whole building has been packed with people saying, we don't want it. The businesses that surround it don't want it. The rest of us didn't want it. It finally, we thought, got settled and was going to be officially settled tonight by passing this ordinance. So I would encourage you, you have heard from the public over 4 years on this same issue. And I would say 80 to 90% of the input has been, no, get rid of it. There have been a few people who stood up and said, yeah, we like the idea, or it would be more convenient for us because we live close to that or our businesses right there. But all the rest of the business owners around it that would be directly affected have stood here and said no, some of them in tears. And so to turn around and take it off now, I think would be doing a disservice to people who have put in 4 years of telling you they didn't want it. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Steve No. I'm not going to sit up here and tell you that I speak for everybody in Placerville. I don't. I speak for myself. I believe that if you vote for this, then you're voting for less safe intersection, more air pollution, less efficient intersection. So it seems backwards, but you guys got to make the decision. That's your job. It's a tough one. Good luck.
Thanks.
Good evening again. Marion Washburn, Azalea Lane, 2 blocks from the proposed, semi-proposed, unproposed traffic improvement. I'm here again tonight to protest the council's proposed elimination of the roundabout as an alternative to the Cedar Ravine and Main Street realignment project, because I cannot conceive how the council can legitimately remove a roundabout alternative from consideration as part of the further environmental study for the Clay Street and Cedar Ravine intersection. And I have several reasons that are important to me, as well as I think important to the city. So I'm going to read them, even though I'm a little halting in my style that way. I can keep track of what I need to say. Placerville has acknowledged through the process of an application for CMAQ funds that a roundabout at Clay Street and Cedar Ravine would reduce auto emissions by a factor of 30% to 50%. The Federal Transportation Administration and Caltrans both verify these emission reduction numbers. If a roundabout replaced the existing configuration at Clay Street and Cedar Ravine, we would achieve a dramatic daily improvement in air quality. The improvement would be so substantial that it would qualify, as you know, for state and federal clean air funds, and I believe that was to a tune of $1.3 million that your staff report noted. Omni Means, which is a transportation engineering planning firm, summarizes air quality improvements in an online presentation concerning roundabouts. So there's quite a bit of information online, and they have some of the most, I think, user-friendly, succinct information available. And they say that 38% to 68% decrease in all emissions result when you replace a four-way stop type intersection with a roundabout. This is extremely significant, I would think. Other studies find that when regular intersections, both the signalized ones and the unsignalized ones, convert to roundabouts, there's an average reduction of 30% in fuel consumption at each roundabout. So that doesn't often get brought up, but it seems significant to me. And the other critical aspect, environmental aspect, is safety. Many agencies, including Federal Highway Administration for Safety and the Insurance Institute of Highway Safety, confirm that vehicle collisions, both pedestrian, bicyclists, as well as motorists, drop by a factor of almost 80%. 80%. That's a big number to drop accidents. Clearly, when the area in question is so close to a school, to a church, to a hospital, and so much commerce, we need to do everything possible, in my view, to increase safety for the pedestrians and the cyclists and the motorists in this part of town. These proven facts add up to show that a roundabout is the cleanest and safest alternative, and to refuse to even consider such a reasonable and feasible environmental alternative before the environmental impact report has been completed truly flies in the face of the intent of CEQA requirements. It's self-evident that traffic is going to increase in that area. We have a hospital that continues to grow in stature and in physical size. We've got schools that seem to remain with their constant population, but increasing number of parents driving children to school.
Are you just about done?
Pardon me?
Are you just about done?
I'll speed it up, huh?
Okay.
Yeah,
One
I
more.
am. Okay.
Thanks.
All right. I lost my spot. Anyway, that was my pointing out that the safety aspect of a roundabout configuration is very important. The last thing I would like to say is how troubling it is to me that the opposition has been largely from people who live outside of the immediate area and, in fact, outside of town. I live within 2 blocks of this area, and I feel like the voice of the residents who use that intersection most frequently during the day are the ones who have been heard the least in this entire thing. And for those voices to be heard, the process needs to be completed as it usually is, and not this most environmentally sound alternative dropped. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. Jackie No. You know I don't agree with the decision you made. I think we need to make decisions based on facts. However, you did make a decision. And unless you've heard any new compelling reason to change your mind, I think you should stick with your decision and move on with it. Thank you.
Thanks. Any additional comments on this item? Seeing nobody approaching the podium, I'm going to cut off the public comment and bring it back to the council. Who'd like to go first? Yes. Any comments?
No.
Go ahead.
I'll make a comment because I was part of the history of the project. Back in 1992, I planted that historical cork oak just out of, because I wanted to beautify the city. I was a planning commissioner when this project started. We held numerous public outreaches at the Scout Hall in the park, and as it's moved through the process, we never did get to a final design phase because it wasn't to that point. I get asked all the time, well, how big is it going to be? Well, we didn't really know because it didn't ever get there. We get finally to the EIR process after some people decided to sue the city on an EIR grounds, and we didn't even get to finish that process. And I have to agree that the speakers who said that the process, that we're thwarting that process right now by pulling a very basic part of planning out of the opportunity for public input, the opportunity for the experts to say their piece, to get it in writing. That's what the lawsuit was about. Show us the impacts. Show us how, if you can mitigate them, fine. If you can't, if this is the preferred alternative still, then that's okay too, but it might not be. There might be another alternative. There might be something that the council could say would benefit all of the community. The past, it was historically a roundabout when it was first built with the Druid Monument. And then the present, today, there's tons of people use that intersection all the time. It is proven, all the data shows it's safer for cars and pedestrians. And yet we hear people today even saying it's unsafe. It's not easy to get around in. And yet all the data shows that it is safer. So I would like to make a motion that we reject this ordinance and that we reinstate the roundabout option into the EIR. If that's
I have a comment. I'm still in conversation.
Let's hear some more
okay.
comments first.
I'll pull my motion.
Okay. This is so upsetting to me. I am constantly being called by the opposition to this, telling people that we have a city council that doesn't listen. And I know that I, for one, listened. When I quite frankly, when this was proposed, as Carol just went through some of the history, I think that this whole project was presented with nothing but good. We figured that we were allowed 3 funding grants, and we had a former staff member who put them all together, thinking this was going to be a wonderful project for that corner and to clean it up and to make it spectacular. There were so many lies got started and mistruths. Just I couldn't believe it, honestly. So when it came time and then the lawsuit was presented and the judge said, okay, you didn't present a full EIR, and in allowing this to go forward, you folks must present a full EIR. I listened, and we did that. Our whole council listened, and we did that. And before the firm could present their findings, we also gave them 4 options so that we could be informed with facts and figures. And before they could come back, oh, and this is another thing I want to say, is that we keep hearing that we didn't hold the public information meetings that we were going to. I, for one, and I think a lot of us were frustrated that this was taking so long, and we kept trying to relay that message to the public. we didn't have the information in order to hold a public information. It takes a long time for something like this to be investigated and all aspects of it. We were not given that opportunity, as Carol just said. We were not given that opportunity to hear it. That's why, until now, this measure was put on the ballot. And I, quite frankly, think that they keep saying how it was returned to us in so many days with, all these votes. I think the way it was presented, and this is my personal opinion, but I think it was presented in a misguided way. And I think when the public hears something, allow the public to vote, naturally that sounds like, that's a catchphrase. It wasn't, I don't think they thought it through. I am not an expert on road construction or engineering or anything that's involved with this kind of a situation. And I don't think the majority of the public is either. And I don't think we're qualified to vote on a public road project. And I, quite frankly, I think it's going to tie up the hands of all of current and our future to deny us, or to deny anybody the right to have a project. Nobody in their right mind is going to spend all the money and time and effort that it takes to even prepare a project. They're not going to do it because they're going to hear Placerville, vote of the public. They're going to say, I'm not going down that road. Not when perhaps all this is going to be lost, because we have to have it go to a vote. We have a vote every 2 years. And if anything, it would take a special vote, that's going to be more costly. And guess who's going to have to pay for it? The folks that are presenting the project. And I, quite frankly, think that my rights as a servant to the public were taken away. And I'm just not happy about this whole thing. And I just think the process that we've had a couple of speakers talk about, it's being denied. And I just think this is so wrong. Thank you.
Thank you. I sure appreciate all the comments tonight. And for the last 4 years, I've been listening intently on this project. I've talked to a great deal of people about the Clay Street Cedar Ravine roundabout option and just the intersection in general. I've talked to the people that are against the roundabout. I've talked to the signers of the initiative. I've sat down with them and had one-on-one conversations. I have listened to their concerns. I have heard them. We have talked about it. I have also talked one-on-one with the people that are for the roundabout. And I've talked to everyone else in between. And, this council has listened. I also, through the process these last 4 years, told you how I was voting. I do not support this option because I do not feel there is broad-based support for it. Personally, I like it. Personally, I think it could work. And I'm elected to represent the people. So I am going to stand my ground on this issue. And I told you the last 3 or 4 years I would not support the Clay Street Cedar Ravine roundabout, and I'm not going to go back on my word tonight. That said, it is my strongest hope that the people that are against the roundabout and all the people that have listened to their propaganda hear my vote tonight and hear my words and recognize that it is the Clay Street Cedar Ravine roundabout that is the challenge. The other 2 roundabouts that are a part of the Placerville, Western Placerville interchange, people do not have an objection to. And I am highly offended that we are tying the city's hands in the future because people are upset about the Clay Street Cedar Ravine roundabout. The people that have signed on the initiative have told me they don't care about the Western Placerville interchange, that it makes sense there. They've sat down with me, looked me in the eye and told me that, and yet this initiative goes forward, and that makes me angry. So I will vote no on the Clay Street Cedar Ravine roundabout, and I urge you to vote no on Measure K and let this city move forward in a way that serves her best.
Do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion. I move that we introduce an ordinance of the...
Okay.
We've got
Just,
a motion
may
already.
I,
No, we
point
don't.
of order? Because I think there's some confusion in the council on what your action is tonight, and I want to clarify it. The only vote that normally is taken when an ordinance is introduced is whether or not you want to waive the reading of that ordinance. Any one member of the council may introduce an ordinance. The vote for the ordinance takes place at the second reading. So your vote tonight would simply be whether or not you're going to waive the reading of the ordinance, but any one of you may introduce the ordinance, and then 2 weeks from tonight, when it comes back for adoption, is when you actually vote on whether you're in favor of the ordinance or not.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So what happens if you don't waive the reading? You introduce the ordinance?
We just read it. Just read it verbatim.
I don't want to do that.
Okay, so who wants to?
I would like to introduce an ordinance, the city council eliminating a roundabout as an alternative for the Cedar Ravine Main Street, Clay Street realignment project, and waive the first reading of the ordinance.
And I will second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. I'll call for the question.
Just for clarification, Councilmember Patton made a motion that I believe died for lack of a second. We didn't address whether or not Councilmember Patton's motion was going forward. Correct?
That motion
think-
would not have been a proper motion in light of what's before the council tonight.
Thank you.
does
Then the
Carol
minutes
have to
will reflect
withdraw?
that.
I actually did.
She did
Oh,
withdraw.
oh.
She did withdraw it earlier.
So all we're voting on is the
So
introduction and the
just
waiving.
we're just voting on the introduction of the.
And the waiving.
I'm sorry, the waiving the reading.
And introducing.
Well, it says clearly on here, though, introduce the ordinance. So now I'm really confused. Because wasn't that didn't she just introduce the ordinance?
Yes, that's what Councilmember Wilkins did, is introduce the ordinance and also move to waive the first reading of that ordinance. So that you're voting on is the waiving of the reading. It's just a formality.
We're not, okay.
Yeah. You're not voting on the ordinance itself. That won't happen until 2 weeks from tonight.
Vice Mayor Borelli.
Aye.
Wait a minute.
As long as that's what it is.
Yeah,
Because
Wait a minute,
I'm
I think-
really uncomfortable with the whole thing.
I'm voting
So-
for the waiving of the reading. That is what I am voting for.
Wait a minute.
Let me try one more time. What Councilmember Wilkins did was to introduce the ordinance and then made a motion that the council waive the reading of the ordinance. So the only thing you're voting on is whether or not you're going to read the ordinance in full tonight or whether or not you're going to waive that reading. The ordinance has been introduced by Councilmember Wilkins, and that's a fact. It's done. So it comes to a vote at the second reading.
But if Councilmember Wilkins' motion dies, what happens?
I think
The only motion that she
didn't
makes
die.
has to do with the waiving of the reading. So if that died, then we would read the ordinance in its entirety.
But it wouldn't be effective until the following week. If
Well,
it's,
it's not effective until the second reading. You have to read, excuse
Okay.
me, you have to either read or waive the reading of an ordinance twice.
got it.
And then you vote on it at the second reading. You don't vote on the merits of the ordinance until it's been read twice. It cannot be adopted unless it's an urgency ordinance. It cannot be adopted until it's been read twice.
Okay, so,
So you were-
Mayor Hagan?
Yes or no?
Mayor.
I'll abstain. I feel very conflicted about this, and I don't feel it shouldn't go forward.
Councilmember Patton.
No.
Councilmember Thomas.
Yes.
Councilmember Wilkins.
Aye.
Raleigh?
I voted for the reading. I did, but I want to make it very clear that I am against this ordinance.
So now I'm going to ask the city attorney, what was the result of that?
Well, from what I understand, the ordinance has been introduced.
Okay.
We're not going to read the ordinance tonight, and in 2 weeks from now, the ordinance will come back before you for a vote as to whether or not it should be adopted, and at that time, whether or not you want to have the ordinance read in full or waive that reading.
Okay, so,
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
It has to do with the resolution 8230. So will that resolution come back, or is that done?
That resolution is done, unless
So
the
in
council...
order for anything to happen to that, what would happen? If you wanted to undo that resolution to put the EIR, or to put the roundabout back in the EIR, how would that happen?
The council would have to bring back a discussion of that resolution, and there would have to be some support to put it back on the agenda for consideration as to whether or not you wanted to rescind it.
So it's not, you wouldn't necessarily have to introduce a new resolution. It could just be this particular resolution, correct?
Correct.
And that would happen at the end of the agenda when you ask for council member reports? Is that when
Bless you.
that-
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
All right. We are at item 9.2. We get to introduce another resolution and waive the first reading of an ordinance. I'm sorry, an ordinance. Mr. Rivas?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to give a brief background as to why this ordinance is before you. When the city staff submitted the draft housing element to HCD at the state for their review, one of the items that they pointed out was that the housing element did not address the requirement for housing for farm workers. The element must address whether the city's ordinance is consistent with the Employee Housing Act, and that's the Health and Safety Code 17021, specifically Health and Safety Code 17021.5 and 17021.6. Generally requires employee housing to be permitted by right without a conditional use permit in single-family zones for less than 6 persons, and in zones allowing agricultural uses with no more than 12 units or 36 beds. The element shall include programs as appropriate to revise zoning to be consistent with the health and safety codes, as I mentioned. The council did approve the housing element, which did contain the program that the city would revise the zoning code to allow housing for farm workers. I'm going to talk about 2 different types. We have small and we have large. With regards to small, we're talking about 6 persons or less. What's interesting is, and this was discussed briefly when this item was before you in the past, is that the city really doesn't have any ability to even question where the people work or what they do or really anything about them if they're living in a single family residence and there's 6 or less, because we really can't even define what a family is. We're not allowed to do that. And so it's sort of a moot point, and I did talk with our representative at HCD, and she agrees. She just felt that the state legislature felt that they want to make sure that was covered. And so the more controversial component was that we are to allow in zones that allow agricultural uses with no more than 12 units or 36 beds. The city does have the RE zone, which does allow for agricultural uses. We have 2 parcels that are zoned RE. The one parcel is located at the end of Stonecrest Road, just north of Highway 50. It's an approximately 21-acre parcel. It has a very custom 4,200 square foot home on it. I think it's very unlikely that the owner of that residence is going to want to put farm labor housing on it, but if somebody were to come forward, they could do so. Staff's recommendation would be that you still adopt the code as recommended by staff so that we could then report back to the state. We're due to give them a report on our housing element in April that we've complied with their request, or they're pointing out that we were deficient in that area, that we are complying with state law to allow farm labor housing. The other parcel is actually an adjoining parcel. It's directly lying west of this one, and the parcel is bifurcated, so it's zoned RE just for a portion of it, and it's very unlikely you'd be able to even develop this portion of that parcel. So with that, staff is recommending that you introduce the ordinance, waive the first reading of the ordinance entitled An Ordinance Amending Provisions of Title 10, Zoning Ordinance of the Placerville City Code to allow for employee housing within the city. And in closing, I just want to add that one of the other items that was a concern to the council was would the city have the ability to restrict the employee housing to farm labor housing? And it is our interpretation that in the code that the city could restrict employee housing strictly to agricultural employees. So in other words, they couldn't develop employee housing for, say, a group of folks working for Intel or some other kind of a use, because it's supposed to be consistent and treated as an agricultural use on that property that allows for agricultural activities.
Thank you, Pierre. Any comments here about Intel housing, or?
I think that's Greenstone, isn't it? It's
Yeah.
on the side of city limits, but.
Right. It's outside.
Yeah.
Did you have a comment?
Can I make a comment?
Yes.
Before you go on, first of all, I'd like to thank Pierre. He's kind of agonized over this, I think, for the last 2 weeks. But I want to make a point that, first of all, I do recommend that you adopt this ordinance, you move forward with it at this time. I would also like to note that from my point of view, I'm very frustrated with this. I agree with the public and you that feels this is not right. In looking at our discussion that Pierre had with our representative down at the state, it was basically what came out of that I heard was, for one definition, for one type of property, we're rural. For another definition, another type of use in this ordinance, we may be considered suburban. Right. And it is extremely confusing, it's ambiguous, and the state is putting all of us in, these blocks of categories when there's no good way of pulling out of that. And I would urge you, as you meet with state representatives, to definitely talk about this and the effect it's having on our community. So,
do you think the League of Cities is also looking at this to get clarification?
I haven't heard that they are. It would take more than just Placerville to have a problem with it. I can look into that and see if there are
Send an
other
inquiry
cities. I would
down
think
or an
other
email.
foothill
Yeah.
cities would be concerned about this.
I thought
but-
we talked about that, of getting in touch with them and.
Yeah, we haven't yet, but yeah.
getting- Yeah, I would like to see that done, and I
Okay.
would like our objections to be noted and forwarded to somebody.
All
Maybe
right.
a lot of somebodies.
And elected in Sacramento, too.
Yeah.
Washington.
Okay, any other comments?
Nope.
Of course. Okay, at this point, I'll open it up for public comment on item 9.2.
Brady McGuire, I'm here for the zoning text change amendments regarding the R5 zone. I'm assuming we're covering that right now because I saw it as part of the agenda.
No, this is only, well, this is affecting, as far as the 6 or fewer for employee housing, this would only affect, this would affect all those properties that allow a single-family residential use by right. So these would be by
In the
right.
agenda tonight, I saw a portion related to the R5 where you were adding back the ability to put a single-family home on an R5 parcel with a conditional use permit.
Yeah, I think the R5 had to do with we were amending the R5 zone district to allow 20-unit minimum
Okay, well, I saw
density.
in the agenda tonight, and I'd like to speak to it.
You were looking at the minutes from the last
No.
meeting? Well, that's the only place it is, so.
Okay. Well, regarding the zone text change amendments, I spoke on September 9th. I've been ill for about a month, so I missed the last meeting. But I wanted to address the R5 zoning, and my attorney, Robert Laurie, thought it prudent that I speak tonight. And at the September 9th meeting, we were told by staff that the term multifamily dwelling unit referred only to apartments, maybe condominiums. Since then, I've done some research, and he thought it prudent that I list some of the projects, and this is directly from HCD's website that I pulled down. Apartment buildings with 3 or more dwelling units, condominiums with 4 or more dwelling units, lodging houses, congregate residence, dwellings with 3 or more efficiency units, shelters, dormitories, timeshare dwellings. Other R occupancies are covered multifamily dwellings, which are regulated by the Office of State Fire Marshal under the California Building Code, California Residential Code, State Fire Code. townhouses are a Group R occupancy. The HCD website says Group R occupancies are allowed. So I want it to be clear to the council that it does not mean just apartments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any additional comments on item 9.2?
Just one last comment, if I may, Mr. Mayor.
Sure.
What was pointed out earlier, there did exist an ambiguity in terms of are we suburban or are we rural. Staff did bring that up with the state, and the state agreed. But I do want to point out that under State Code 17021.6, and that's the section of the code that's basically referring to employee housing consisting of no more than 36 beds in group quarters or 12 units. Basically, it states that for purposes of this section, employee housing includes employee housing defined in subsection B of section 17008, even if the housing accommodations or property are not located in a rural area as defined by section 50101. So it's sort of, maybe the writers of this section of the code recognize that ambiguity, but I wanted to point that out.
Okay. Thank you. Bring it back to the council.
I'll just go ahead and make a motion to introduce and waive the first reading of the ordinance amending provisions of Title 10, the zoning ordinance.
Well, second.
Been moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Is that okay? Thanks. Glad to hear that. Can you record that and send it to my house? All right. We are on item 10.1, public hearing regarding considering an appeal by Sean McCartney, Western Slope Boys and Girls Club, to revise the condition of approval number 3 and to overturn condition of approvals number 11 and 12, 28, as adopted by the Planning Commission's September 2nd meeting, approved by, which was the approval of the Western Slope Boys and Girls Club project, conditional use permit 2014-1, site plan review 2014-1, and environmental assessment 2014-03, located at 2840 Mallard Lane. And because of that location, I must recuse myself, so I will go in the back room and be a good boy. And you guys have fun.
Do you have to officially turn it over to me?
And the vice mayor will take over.
Okay, you're up.
Thanks, Carl. Okay, so first of all, I'm going to call for our staff report. Mr. Rivas.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. My staff report is going to be very brief, meaning I'm going to just focus in on the points of the appeal, since the appeal is basically appealing of 3 specific conditions of approval as approved by the Planning Commission. So I'm not going to get into a discussion of the overall project, since the project in of itself is not being appealed. The application for the 14,567 square foot Boys and Girls Club facility was approved by the Planning Commission September 2nd of 2014, and the applicants are appealing conditions of approval 3, 11, and 28. So with regards to condition 3 required the submittal of a final landscape plan for review by the Planning Commission prior to issuance of a building permit. This condition was specifically added by the Planning Commission. Staff is suggesting that the condition be modified to allow the submittal of landscape plan for review by the Planning Commission prior to the issuance of the construction permit. This would allow the applicant to begin grading of the site while concurrently working on completing the required landscaping plan. With respect to condition 11 requires a payment of $113,800 traffic impact mitigation fee, which is based on a rate of $7.76 per square foot of building area that is established in City Code Section 815.5 for minor commercial. The code allows for a developer to submit a traffic study to demonstrate an alternative fee. No traffic study has been submitted. Staff used the Institute of Traffic Engineers trip generation manual and used the community center land use category, which equated to 333 trips. Due to the specificity of the land use that proposed, staff then reduced these trips by 1/3 and rounded down to 200 trips for the proposed use. At $338 per trip, the fee is then reduced to $67,600. Staff researched the property and determined that a 1,720 square foot church schoolroom existed on the site at one time. Staff is proposing that a credit be given of $5,296 for a total TIM fee of now $62,304. This is a reduction in TIM fees of, I think, approximately $50,000. Staff will also note that the traffic impact mitigation fee per our ordinance is to be adjusted annually based on a construction cost index. The construction cost index has risen approximately 31% since the establishment of the fee, or would equate to an increase of $19,314. Staff has not completed the annual adjustment and therefore is not proposing to apply that fee increase that otherwise should have been included. The City Code does not provide for a waiver of TIM fees, and doing so could be a gift of public funds. The applicant has stated that the project is not growth-inducing. Staff would counter that the TIM fee is applied to development of a specific piece of property. The TIM fee is not applied to a particular business entity that occupies the property and does not transfer when the business moves to a new location. With regards to Condition 28, Condition 28 requires the widening of Green Valley Road to provide for a 12-foot lane and 8-foot shoulder from street center to allow for an ultimate 40-foot road width. The applicant contends that the requirement is to mitigate future development and will necessitate construction of a 10-foot retaining wall. City Code Section 8-9-3 requires the construction of frontage improvements to include curbs, gutters, sidewalks, and street paving in accordance with the city standard specifications whenever any person adds building area or off-street parking that would affect an increase in the density of the use of the property or affects an increase of the traffic generation on the street in question. Resulting from a previous subdivision of the property, a street frontage improvement agreement was recorded against the property that required over 70% of the Green Valley Road frontage to be improved. That would include 325 linear feet of curb and gutter, 325 linear feet of sidewalk, and 2,270 square feet of paving within 9 feet of the face of curb. This is all along just Green Valley Road. Staff met with the County Department of Transportation staff to determine what the ultimate road section would be at the county's end of Green Valley in light of the Weber Creek Bridge replacement and road reconstruction project that is happening in the near future. Staff will not be recommending curb, gutter, and sidewalk since there does not appear to be a future need to provide sidewalk for pedestrian traffic, even though the applicant is already obligated to construct it per the street frontage improvement agreement, which should have been known to the applicant upon review of the title report or disclosed by the seller of the property. The applicant states that they are willing to dedicate the necessary right-of-way to the city along Green Valley Road. The necessary right-of-way is already dedicated to the city per the recorded parcel map. The cost of the improvements are much less now, is much less it's what's being required of them than which the city can call in at any time based on the street frontage improvement agreement. Staff is not in receipt of any support documentation regarding the $150,000 cost of the retaining wall. A review by county engineering staff appears to indicate that only a smaller area just west of the corner may need a retaining wall. Staff is recommending that Condition 28 remains as written. And that concludes staff's report. I'll be happy to answer any questions you have at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Rivas. I was just going to call for any questions from the council for Mr. Rivas this time.
I have one, and I apologize if I just missed it somehow, but the previous street frontage improvement agreement, is that match what you're asking today or no? it's less than what?
It is much less than. What staff is asking is for basically completion of the road width to provide for. So this would be paving work along Green Valley Road for that fronting the property only. And that will be providing for an 8-foot or a 12-foot travel lane and 8-foot shoulder. And of course, per our city planning documents, that also accommodates then bicycle lane.
And what is the road widths right now, right there?
I don't know what the full width is, but it's less than the 40 feet that would be required for the full width. And so the applicant is only providing for their half of the road. We would get the remaining required width of the road on the east side when those properties develop.
So the street frontage improvement agreement that was previously signed goes the entire length of the project. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And that's curbs, gutters, sidewalk, and the wide road.
That's correct.
And so the revised, this agreement, resolution 28 or whatever it is, so that is a shorter distance and no curb, gutter, sidewalks, just the wider road?
Yeah, staff is only requiring the curb, gutter, and sidewalk then along Mallard. We have street frontage improvement agreements also on 2 of the properties located on Mallard adjoining this one up the street.
Going
and
further
so
towards the...
we'll probably be calling those in. But as far as this project, there isn't a street road frontage improvement on the parcel directly on the corner, but they're not appealing that section. They were appealing the requirement to widen the road to provide for the 12-foot lane and 8-foot shoulder on Green Valley Road. So the sidewalk will come to the corner. There'll be the curb return in the corner there, and then it stops. Staff just didn't feel there was going to be a pedestrian need for the additional curb, gutter, and sidewalk. So as part of the condition 28, to read that section then that applies to this, staff is, or what was approved by the Planning Commission, is that the city will rescind the street frontage improvement agreement number 141 along Green Valley Road once the improvements are completed. So that obligation that currently exists then would be removed upon meeting this new condition, this new standard.
And the county is from the county line down to Weber Creek, basically is going to be, in theory, a 40-foot road?
Eventually.
I mean, yeah.
Yeah, it'll be a 40-foot width with 12-foot travel lanes and 8-foot shoulders.
So the bridge redesign is to accommodate that size road? The bridge redesign will accommodate that size road?
The bridge work, and I believe it's maybe, I can't recall the exact distance of their project. I know the bridge replacement will be the same federal funding that we're using to replace Blair's and Placerville Drive. And
my question is, the bridge itself will be big enough to accommodate a 40-foot road? That's my question.
That's my understanding, yes.
Okay. All right, thanks.
Tricia, did you?
Yeah, I do. Okay. All right, Pierre, I do have a few questions. And I appreciate that staff has looked at options to help make this project work. My first question is on TIM fees. And I understand that per city code, they are to help, and I quote, build new traffic and circulation infrastructure, and that is to accommodate additional traffic. When TIM fees are paid on a property, does that go toward improvements around that property, or what are the TIM fees used for?
The TIM fees are basically used for expansion of future city circulation infrastructure as described in our capital improvement program.
So that's just in general to build out our city?
To build out the city.
Okay.
As the city continues to grow, as undeveloped properties grow, each development would pay its fair share of the TIM fees, basically based on the ordinance. An applicant would always have the opportunity to submit a traffic study if they want to propose a different traffic impact fee.
Okay. And my next question is, and I do realize that TIM fees apply to a property, and per City Code Title 8, Chapter 15. I guess my first question is, did they pay TIM fees when the Boys and Girls Club moved into the Armory?
I don't know the answer to that. I would say that the Armory probably didn't pay any traffic impact mitigation fees. They probably didn't exist at the time that development occurred. when the Boys and Girls Club built their addition, that newer building on Railroad Drive, I would assume that they paid traffic impact mitigation fees for the construction of that building. But again, I'm not 100% certain, but I'm assuming that they would have paid those TIM fees for that building.
Okay, and I realize that the TIM fees, go toward the land, not a business entity, and it does not transfer with a business. I realize that, and I just have to ask a question. Should there be a provision in our city code where a property, especially if it just moves within our city limits, is given a credit, a transfer credit? Especially if it's just moving down the street, and it's just a question. Is there any provision for that?
There is not. The only provision, and we did find that there was that 1,700 square foot pre-existing building on this site, and so we're giving the applicant credit for the development that did pre-exist on that site. Whether or not that previous use paid the TIM fees, they are due the credit, and the county has the same credit program as the city does. As far as transferring, staff would say no, because the improvements are made, another use could go into that site, and they're going to be generating traffic. So again, as the city builds out, that's one of the means that the city is able to collect funds to be able to implement is capital improvement program. It's expansion of a circulation system to accommodate an ever-growing city.
Okay, and I guess my final question before we hear public comment, would it be possible for perhaps there to be a deferment of especially the road widening along Green Valley Road, because those other parcels there's no plans to build them out as of yet, and would it be possible to defer the road widening at that point to coincide with the future development of those projects, and do them all at the same time, and therefore reduce the burden and the cost to any one entity?
We don't recommend that. Typically, development of any private property provides for the frontage improvements per the jurisdiction specifications. So therefore, we wouldn't consider deferring it. It was deferred via the mechanism of the frontage improvement agreement for the subdivision of the property originally.
Okay. All right. Those are my questions for now, Madam Mayor, Vice Mayor.
Thank you. And along those same lines, my question is for future development, are they going to be charged along those same lines? In other words, for future development, this is what I can't quite understand. Any future development would have to, how would you gear the TIM fees on any future development that is also going to use Green Valley and the bridge, et cetera? And so if these folks are being charged with what I'm getting now, the full impact, what happens when the next development comes along? If what they are charged, would some of that be reimbursed to this project? I don't think I'm understanding what I should be understanding.
No, typically the way a TIM fee program is produced is you have a nexus study, you have a study where you're examining the build out of your community.
Yes.
And then when you're looking at the build out of the community, the city is looking at a circulation system to accommodate that build out. And so we look at what are the road requirements. And so we develop, as our capital improvement program now has, if you looked at our current traffic impact mitigation fee program, it'll list all the different projects that the city proposes to accomplish. And there are cost estimates associated with completing these road improvement projects. And so then we look at, then the nexus study comes in where then we develop, as is in our code, what is the amount of fee based on, typically on a square footage basis and based on the land use. So commercial has a different kind of, has a different fee. There's minor, there's major commercial, there's residential, multifamily, and they all have a particular TIM fee associated with it, so that eventually then the city is able to generate revenue to then implement its capital improvement program. In other words, build the infrastructure to support an ever-developing city concurrent with that development. I hope that answers your question.
Let me try and
You
help.
try.
So the fee that they are paying is not necessarily paying for Green Valley Road, okay? The fee that they are paying goes to general infrastructure, could be anywhere in the city, that helps with the total circulation plan. It goes towards those projects that are listed in our TIM fee. The improvements we're proposing for Green Valley that they do are not part of those TIM fee projects. That's a separate issue. They're required to do the frontage improvements on Green Valley Road adjacent to their property.
Just adjacent to.
Correct,
Okay.
correct. So the fee that they're paying is not for, a fee to pay for the full improvements of Green Valley Road. It's a fee to go into a portion of payments towards these projects that are listed in our TIM fee based on the number of trips, if you will, that this project generates. When the property across the street is built,
That came to
developed,
my mind that they.
it will also pay a fee based on whatever its use is, and that funding goes toward expanding our infrastructure, our traffic infrastructure, to help circulation due to the increased number of trips of that facility.
Okay, and so along those terms, there's a housing development that was approved a number of years ago, and it stalled for economic reasons, and now I understand that it's being, a new owner has taken over.
Right.
But they are not considered to be a part of helping with this project because their project is already, it's a done deal. Is that right?
Well, they did their frontage improvements at that time, and they pay impact fees. I'm assuming those are paid, though, at time of pulling a building permit. And so as more homes are built, as they pull building permits, they will be required to pay a TIM fee that goes into that pot of money that
Okay.
pays for the general
So they are
improvements
going to
throughout.
pay, they're going
They
to.
will pay future money as they
build.
pull their permits.
Okay.
Yes.
That's better. John?
Thank you, Madam Vice Mayor, if I might. And I think as the city manager was making a point, you need to separate the issue of the TIM fees from the issue of the road improvements, because they are
Okay.
two very separate and distinct issues.
Okay.
Pierre made a comment about potentially if the TIM fees were reduced or waived, it could be a gift of public funds. And I'd like to address that for a
Yes,
moment,
I would
if I
appreciate
might. Well, first of all, the city, pursuant to the California Constitution, any governmental entity is precluded from making a gift of public funds. And so the question is the use of these funds, and the waiver of them is considered a gift, or the giving of those funds, is that for a public purpose? If it's for a public purpose, then it's not a gift. It's something within the purview of the entity, the city of Placerville, to do. And it doesn't take, I think, a lot of work to make a finding that the Boys and Girls Club provides a very valuable public service. I mean, gifts of money, and I've used the term gifts, and I probably shouldn't, but the giving of money or waiver of fees has been held to be not a gift of public funds when it's used to help the indigent, the sick, the poor, economic development, all types of different elderly, so there's no reason it can't be used to help youth. And if the council were to do that, you'll need to make a finding that the Boys and Girls Club provides a service to the public and that this does not constitute a gift of public funds. It is money that is being used for a public purpose. With that, there's two other issues that arise, though.
Okay.
Okay. Talking about the TIM fee program, and Pierre and the city manager have explained that, everybody pays as you do construction based on the type of structure or use you're making of the land, something in regard to the TIM fees. And it's based on the overall cost of these improvements that are part of the TIM fee program. Everybody pays a share to make up that whole amount. Everybody puts in a piece of the pie, so to speak. If you take out a piece of that pie, then there could be, and I'm not saying there isn't, we'd have to go back and re-examine it, but there could be a situation where the city would have to put back that money from the general fund, from non-TIM fee sources, in order to make that pie whole again. So you don't want to put a improper burden on the other fee payers, and if you take some money out of the pot, you could increase the burden on the other people who have to pay. So that's something we'd have to look at, and there is that possibility. The second possibility is right now, what staff has come up with is a valid methodology for computing the TIM fees. And so that you have a very good argument that by reducing the amount of TIM fees from the $100,000 figure to the $60,000 figure, that's not giving them anything. It's a valid computation of what the TIM fees should be.
Oh, okay.
However, if you are to reduce that or waive that amount
Even further?
even further, then you might run into a situation, if that amount is significant, and I would say $60,000 could very well be significant if it was an entire waiver, where under the labor code, their project could get subject to paying prevailing wage. And the definition under 1720 of the labor code makes it clear that the waiver of fees can be included. So if a city participates in a project by waiving fees, reducing fees, to a significant degree, it then can become a public works project and subject to prevailing wage. So, you know, that's something that both the city and the applicant need to think about, because there's liabilities for both sides if that were to happen.
Actually, I have a question.
Wendy?
Yeah. Thank you for your explanations. I always appreciate that. I do have a question then regarding the street frontage, the road widening. Based on what you said, City Code 8-9-3 states that any person or entity that increases traffic on that street must conduct curb, gutter, sidewalks, and street paving, except if, number C, the city manager finds it would involve practical difficulties or cause undue hardship unnecessary to carry out the purpose and spirit of the chapter. Does the city manager have to make that finding, or is it the city council, or what? Explain this part of the code to me.
Yeah, the city council can make that finding. Certainly, the city manager can as well. But this is before you tonight, so it's ripe, if you will, for the council to make those determinations.
So this doesn't preclude us from doing that?
It doesn't preclude the council from doing that, no.
Does that protect us based on what you said?
Well, again, separate the TIM fees from the off-site
And
improvements.
now I'm talking about the off-site improvements,
Right.
the street
And
paving. Yeah.
under the government code, a governmental entity can elect to perform the off-site improvements itself, even if it benefits a private party. Okay. So if you modify or waive or change those off-site improvements, you can do that, and you're not running into the same issues. As long as you don't do both.
Okay.
If you do the off-site improvements, but don't contribute money, i.e. reduce the TIM fees and those kinds
So
of
it's
things.
one or the other, generally.
You're going to
that
stay out of
protects
that
us.
labor code catch-22.
So last question. If we were to modify the street improvements, and the city would later be responsible for that, and we'd all need to understand that and what
Right.
that means, could that be included in our capital improvement projects, which then could be covered under TIM fees?
As if the project is part of the TIM fee program.
Could it be added to the TIM fee program, is what I'm saying?
When they do the analysis of the TIM fees and they revisit those, it could be at that time.
It's all very complicated.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
And also, and you asked a question earlier about deferring it. It would still be eligible for a street frontage improvement agreement, which is a deferral of those. That same section, I think, or one of the companion sections
it's all right in
provide
there.
for the street frontage improvement agreement, when you're not calling everything in at the same time and it's going to be a while for the improvements to come in, you can do that and defer it. It means they're just going to have to pay later, but it does defer it from taking place right now.
All right, thank you.
Can I add to that? And probably, assuming the council or the county moves forward with their project this coming year, which I think is their plan, correct, Pierre?
I'm sorry, what was that question?
They're planning on starting on the bridge project this coming year, right?
You know, I don't know. I know it's happening soon, but I don't know precisely when.
And what I was going to say is it would probably make sense that if we did defer, we should consider calling for those improvements once the county has done their project. Otherwise, you may have a wider road narrowing down when it comes into the city.
And that would be a disaster.
It shouldn't happen, so.
Carol or Tricia, do you have anything more to ask? Okay. And could there be, along the lines of deferral, could there be some sort of an agreement with the applicant to space it out, or will we have to wait till another project is proposed to call that in? Could there be another a set of terms to make life easier?
Per the code, an agreement would be required.
I'm sorry?
Per our section of the code, an agreement would be required. So when Councilmember Thomas mentioned 8-9-4, variance from construction requirements, and then read C, where the city manager finds and determines that such requirements, as applied to an individual property by reason of exceptional or extraordinary situation or condition of said property, or the location thereof, or of the use of development of the property in the immediate vicinity of said property, will involve practical difficulties, or would cause undue hardship, unnecessary to carry out the purposes and spirit of this portion of this chapter. And then the second paragraph after that says, such variance shall not be granted nor become effective unless and until an agreement between the property owner and the city of Placerville is properly executed, agreeing that the property owner will undertake the construction of the required improvements as required by these regulations within 90 days after the notice to begin construction of said improvements is sent by the city to the property owner. Notice to begin the construction of said improvements shall not be sent until the city council has first determined that such improvements are needed. Said agreement shall further provide that in the event of default in the undertaking and completing of the required improvements within the time specified, the city may cause such work to be done and the cost thereof to be assessed as a lien against the property. Such agreement shall recite that it creates a covenant running with the land and shall be recorded in order to constitute notice to any prospective buyers and encumbrances. City manager is hereby authorized to execute such agreement for and on behalf of the city, and that's primarily what is already encumbering the property now was the street frontage improvement agreement that was executed between the city and the property owner when the property was subdivided.
Okay. At this time, I'm going to open it for public comment, and I'd like to ask that the applicant speak first. Or their agent, I'm sorry. I didn't clarify that, I'm sorry.
My name's Charlie Downs. Very pleased to be here tonight. Thank you for what you do. First of all, I want to address condition number 3. Thanks, staff, for creating what we think is a win-win. The reason we had asked for that is we're relying a lot on volunteers for this work, so this will allow us to pull a grading permit and begin work, hopefully before the onset of winter. I do want to make a point that staff also outlined the various options that you have as a council tonight. Make no mistake about it, we favor option number 2, which is to grant the appeal, modify condition 3 as has been presented and talked about, and then delete conditions 11 and 28. I would like to comment on both of those 2 conditions. First of all, we really do appreciate staff for coming up with a very innovative way to look at our traffic impact mitigation. You're being very good. We're asking the council to be great because we hope to further reduce that just given the fact that we want to see the greatest amount of money spent on the kids of this community rather than going into a fund that would fund other work within the city. And the reason is that we feel that this existing use that is already being provided here in the community, we're basically and simply just relocating that use to a new location. Now, we'll concede that with the new facility, there will be some increase in use. In fact, we hope it will increase use. That's the whole point of this. So what we would propose as a methodology of further reduction of the TIM fees is to look at what kind of a credit we could get, or rather, what increase in use we're really, how we're really impacting the city in terms of that increased use. We have about 5,000 square feet more of building area, and we're anticipating the use with the kids to increase by about 20% over and above what we have now. Now, staff made a comment relative to the existing use of the armory, that potentially there could be some future use. That's not the case. What's happened up and down the state of California is that the National Guard Armory is creating these rents for all their community uses. Their intention is to drive out community uses out of these armories. They want them for themselves. And so that's what has prompted this project to begin with. So again, we don't feel that we're responding to growth, and we concede that there will be a certain amount of increase in use, which we hope for because we want to serve more kids of the community. I'd like to really get into the detail because I really think the devil's in the detail on this street widening. The previous property owner back in 1984 subdivided the property. That's why there was a street frontage improvement agreement signed, because he created two parcels, one off of Mallard Lane and one off of Green Valley Road. We are not accessing off of Green Valley Road. Beggars can't be choosers. We've been, this property has been donated to us, thankfully, through the generosity of the philanthropy that we have here in the community, which we greatly appreciate. It'd be far better if we were surrounded by other parcels rather than Green Valley Road, but we just happen to be on Green Valley Road. Now, the road widening not only includes the 8-foot bike lane, a 12-foot westbound lane, but it also includes a left-hand turn pocket for Mallard Lane for people that are heading eastbound on Green Valley Road so that they can turn left onto Mallard Way. Now, I would dispute the county's findings on the cost of that, the road widening. In fact, we have the contractor who's disputing our own estimate currently. Just the power pole alone at the corner of Mallard and Green Valley Road, that's a high power, there's a power transmission, overhead power at that location. That'll have to be relocated. We've heard from our electrical guy that's probably order of magnitude is $75,000. Now we're coming off of Mallard Way. We have no problem improving Mallard Way. The site has been deliberately designed so that all access, parent drop-off and pickup, bus circulation, everything is off of Mallard Way. We didn't want to touch Green Valley Road. The only reason that street frontage improvement agreement was put in place is because there was a subdivision, and that property would have been the only way to access it. The westerly most property was off of Green Valley Road. So I think this is a very unique situation. We're asking for some relief there. The other thing, if you take a look at the Google Earth image that we've provided there, really the westward limit.
Excuse me one second. Does anybody have a pointer that we could?
I hope I don't blind anybody
Okay.
with this thing.
Tricia, close your eyes.
Oh, I see it. Okay, so if you take a look at where Mallard Lane is, here it is here, and the property is shaded here. This really represents the limits of the urbanization of Placerville. This is we do see this as premature development, and that's just the only point I wanted to make there. But furthering to dispute what the county came up with in terms of how much that road improvement would cost, another one of the difficulties we have and challenges we have, and again, beggars can't be choosers when it comes to a donated piece of property, we have a 10-inch water line with an easement that runs along Green Valley Road up from the street there. Now, the previous site plan review, or the last site plan review that we went through as Murray and Downs with Carter Kelly, we had no problem with the improvements along Green Valley Road. You'll notice that that project was accessing the project site and the two buildings that were proposed off of Green Valley Road. So it would stand to reason that Green Valley Road should be improved. Again, we do not anticipate our users of the facility to be coming from the west. They're going to be coming from the east. They're going to be coming from the north. We very much and intentionally laid out the building and the site improvements so it's entirely accessed off of Mallard Way, which we're improving. Let's see here. So I think I've covered all the points that I wanted to cover. I know there's a number of people that want to speak. I'd like to first introduce our board president, Rob Bordeaux, who will talk a little bit about the great public purpose of the Boys and Girls Club and the capital campaign that we currently have underway.
Charlie, before you do that, I need to ask the council if any of you have any questions of Charlie, or the spokesperson.
Thank you.
I'm sorry. Yes, absolutely. Okay, so now I will open it to the public.
Thank you. As Charlie said, my name is Rob Barbeau, and I'm really relatively new to the community. I've been here 8 years and moved after I retired as a public educator for 40 years. I was a high school counselor, high school teacher, middle school, and then served in my last 15 years as school superintendent. One of the reasons I got involved with the Boys and Girls Club when I came here is because I saw what good it did in the communities I worked before for kids. I don't see Boys and Girls Club as separate and as a separate issue or as a separate business. And if you don't believe that, I'm just appealing because I know most of you probably do. Go and see what it does for children. There is not another group that we have that provides learning after school, a safe environment, a place other than wandering up and down Main Street for many kids who are not supervised, an opportunity to have someone say hello to them and welcome them to the club, a place to go in the summer. When this summer, as one activity alone, when those kids were taken to the lake, just to see how many of those kids have never living in this community had the opportunity to go to a lake, to visit and be on the water. It is just heartwarming and at the same time very encouraging because overall, as a community member, we're providing hope. Not myself, but all the people who are involved with it. And I really welcome you, whatever happens tonight, or encourage you, is to go visit and see what happens at the Armory every single day for the kids that are there. It's parents bringing their kids because they have to work, have to earn a living, to a safe environment where they're helped with their homework, where their civic responsibilities and credits to those things are developed, where if necessary health issues are addressed to appropriate dentists and helped, where many of them get probably their only meal for the day. And to me, those are kids that have a future and can be developed in our community to be police officers, to be teachers, to be city council members, and not kids that will go into the system. So to me, as partners with you, and I think as a community, please consider when you look at fees that, yes, that's important, and we certainly consider what's important with your staff to do, as with staff that I had once. But at the same time, you have a responsibility, and I guess that's why the law provides you the decisions inevitably to look at the big picture. And yes, we think we're special. Not special in the sense that we're better than anyone, but that we are a community and are mitigating the needs of at least 160 to 170 kids a day, 300 a week that come to that facility for help, and their parents and places to go in the summer. There are kids that are not having to be involved, as many others I'm afraid do, with law enforcement on the streets, getting into trouble, looking for something else to do, not developing the skills they need. Those things that will cost us all eventually much more than we're asking you to relieve us from. So please, as you look at the big picture, we know you have laws and things to follow. We wouldn't expect it any different. But please try to remember, for our sake meaning the children that we serve, that we really need your help to bring this to fruition. Charlie mentioned earlier on, just one last comment, and then I'll sit down because others wish to speak, I'm sure. Charlie mentioned the Armory, but realize we only have a month-to-month lease there. Good people put that together years ago because it was the best they could do. And to this day, that facility and the programs offered, the development of the club, has been on the generosity of this community, as it is the generosity that's providing the potential opportunity for a new location that will be better and better serve the kids. The Armory is not the best that we can do for our kids. We can do better than that with a new facility. We have people who are willing to give their resources and are giving them resources of money and property and effort to make that happen, and we need your help. Thank you.
I was remiss in not asking that the speakers be limited to 3 minutes, and if you're speaking for a group, if you all, to have everybody come forward for 3 minutes and say the same thing is kind of a waste of your time. But I just, if you have a group that you're all saying the same thing, 5 minutes, a single speaker 3. So thank you very much for your comments.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm Jim Carter, and I'm the current property owner there. And I agree with Mr. Rivas. I probably should have read the title report when I bought the property. But as my wife will probably tell you, I'm below average anyway. So.
I don't believe that.
That's not true.
But anyway, and it's, I can relate to the lady that was the introvert because, 30 some odd years ago when Skip and I took this Purity Market and made this building what it is, I never dreamed that I would ever be here facing the council, whom I truly respect for what you do here and the time you give to better this community. And though maybe from time to time may not agree with everything that you decide, you sure have my utmost respect for what you do.
Thank you.
Right back at you.
And what I really want to talk about, Patty said, I'm not going to go over and over. You all know what Boys and Girls Club does, but I want to talk a little bit about the cost impact of this fees and so forth. I came to a planning commission meeting here a month or so ago, and the figure $150,000 was thrown out for this Green Valley Road widening. So when it was all over, I asked Charlie, where'd they get that figure, $150,000? Said, well, they got it from our engineer, And trust me, architects and engineers are wonderful people. They design wonderful buildings. They figure out, storm drains, utilities, retaining walls, etc. Wonderful things they do. But in 50 years in construction, I can guarantee you they are the world's worst estimators. So this isn't a $150,000 deal. I'll tell you what the impact is. It's the time you do these retaining walls, move power poles. There's an EID water main that is going to be behind the retaining walls that is going to have to be relocated because of its proximity, let alone just the widening of the street. And you take then the TIM fees, no matter, we do appreciate the reduction, the school fees, the fire fees, the building permit fees, and on, and the cost of this road widening and the stuff that goes with it, you're looking more at $400,000 and $500,000. And what that'll do, it leaves us basically with two options as I see it. Forget the whole thing, which that's not going to happen because this community has been so supportive of this project. I've talked to literally hundreds of people that have just come up and just are so, they recognize what this building and what this does, not only for the kids, but for the community as a whole. And they've opened up their checkbooks. And we're not quite there yet. We've raised a couple $1 million. We've got a little ways to go, but this $400,000 to $500,000 is going to present a major challenge. So we're not going to abandon the thing, but probably what will happen, as you see it on a lot of projects, it's going to be what's called a reduced scope. We're going to have to shrink this thing, which means we'll reduce the computer classroom, we'll reduce the art room, the music room, the learning center, the gymnasium. And one thing we'll probably take off right off the bat is that we have a stainless steel commercial kitchen. And that's where these kids are going to get the meals that some of them the only meal they get. And we were going to be able just to provide just wonderful service. And as me and Mr. Vicini have talked on many occasions, there's also the thought that, you know, when the club's not there all the time, they're not there on weekends, but maybe, you know, we could get together and we could provide meals for those people who maybe don't have a place to go certain times. And we can, this club can be used for so many things for community benefit. But it can only happen with the support of everybody. And John, I'll argue with you one thing. This is community money, private money. It's not going prevailing wage, no matter. So,
Jim
but anyway,
says
thank
so.
you for your consideration.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sherry Bagnell, and I'm proud and very pleased to be before you tonight and to let you know that my son Thomas is one of the lucky kids who gets to attend the Boys and Girls Club. I could say he's your average 7, 8-year-old, but that's not going to be the truth. My son has neurological cerebral palsy, and it's hard to find a place where I feel safe placing him so that I can go to work and help provide for him and his sisters. I'm a single mom, okay? That's the way I want it. But I want my family to be safe. I want my kids to be in a safe place. And the Boys and Girls Club is it. When we moved here 12 years ago, our major draw was the safety and security of knowing we had a Boys and Girls Club here. Somebody who had my children's best interest at heart as much as I do when I can't be there. Now, my little guy has a lot of fears, but this summer he got over them. He rode a boat for the first time. He came home glowing about his best friend, Gordon Vicini, let him ride in the boat. For weeks, that's all he talked about. Now he wants to be a junior staffer. He wants to be somebody who makes as much of a difference as the staff there at the Boys and Girls Club. But how can that go forward if we have the kind of fees that we're looking at? I know a number of families that are struggling more than I am myself. Their kids need those meals. They need that space. They need that structure and security. Please, keep our kids in your hearts and your minds when you reconsider these fees. For a lot of them, it's all they have. This gave my son the confidence to do things he never would have tried. He now writes and composes cowboy construction songs to sing to firemen. He's been in a play. He's played the guitar. He's going to learn how to swim. He couldn't have done this without the Boys and Girls Club. Please, we really need you to consider these fees. Don't let our kids down.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Joe Horn. I live in Cameron Park. I would like to thank you for the long hours you put in and how not enough people say thank you. I'd like you to remember two things. One, we're your partners and your neighbors. We're trying to take care of and help the kids of this community just like you often do. Most importantly, I'm a semi-professional Tim Fee critic. This Tim Fee that the staff is proposing to levy on this building is based on a model, and the model is wrong. The model doesn't work for this building. Incrementally, there's almost going to be no change in the number of trips because there's already a bunch of trips to the National Guard Armory. So technically, your attorney might tell you what we're asking you to do is waive the TIM fees tonight. But really what we're asking you to do is take a look at the model, because in this case, the model doesn't work. This building is not going to increase traffic in Placerville. In this case, the model your staff is using doesn't work, because incrementally they'll all be almost immaterial in terms of new trips. Thank you.
Joe, 1 second.
Okay, Joe, I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Okay?
You're county auditor.
Yes?
You're good at it. You take good care of the public's money
I'm
at the county.
very good at it,
You're
Wendy.
very, excuse me,
Yes.
you are
Yeah.
very good at it, Mr.
Yeah.
Hard.
Yeah.
What would you do in our case?
I would not levy any TIM fee on this building.
What about the street improvements?
I'm again, I would defer to Charlie Downs and Mr. Carter. I'm not an expert on, I'm a semi-professional critic of TIM fees, but I am not an expert on what road improvements are needed. However, to me, all the traffic is going to go on to Mallard. I don't see that we're doing anything that would require any improvements to Green Valley Road. But
What about tying into a county bridge? County project? I mean, I know I'm putting you on the spot.
Right. I would be I would like to put a side bet on when the rest of that road will be improved up to Mallard. I think it's going to be unfortunately, I think it's going to be a long time.
So you'd be in favor of waiving the TIM fees and deferring the street improvements if we had to make a decision?
Absolutely.
Okay. Thanks
Thank
for your
you.
opinion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jim Archer, and I've been a resident of Placerville for over 20 years now. My wife and I have raised 2 other children that are now grown and out of the house, and we have twins, Aaron and Ryan, that are 8 years old, and they attend the Boys and Girls Club. Now, during the summertime, we take them, and they spend the entire day there, and they frolic and play with all their buddies, and they have a great time. During the school year, they're bused over there after school, and they spend approximately 2.5, 3 hours there. And I can tell you that each time that I show up and I pick them up early, they look dejected and put out that I'm there early because they want to stay and play with their buddies. So that's a great sign for me. But to further the goal of the Boys and Girls Club, they provide music programs, they provide mentoring programs, they have a healthy food program. It's a tremendous asset to our community. I realize that they're in their current situation in the Armory. By having a new facility, they would be there long-term and continue to support the community and all of our children, which I think is an extremely valuable aspect of this program. So I just wanted to give you the parents' perspective because Sean had asked me to come here and speak to you and tell you from the heart and from a parent's perspective.
Thank
So,
you, Mr.
thank you.
Archer. Thank you.
Gordon Bassini, Board of Directors, Boys and Girls Club. Again, I want to thank everybody, staff, for the time you put into it, because it's not an easy situation when you've got any new development. But a lot has been said tonight. We are relocating, and we are on a time scale that could be 0. If the Armory wants us out, we're out. I want to make a little history story here, and I'm going to keep it real short, but 3 times I was involved with teen centers here, after-school programs. There was a council member who was here. There's a spouse that's up there on the board. Her husband was here. Conrad Montgomery, Kiwanis, Rotary Club. 3 times we started teen centers. And guess what? All 3 times we failed. We didn't have the cooperation from school districts. We didn't have a plan. We didn't have staff that was trained. We didn't have anything but a jukebox and a ping pong table, and that's all we had. And it doesn't work with that. Until 1996, we got a group together, and it basically started with the Office of Education. They realized that the need was here for an after-school program for kids. It took us 4 years to get it together. We finally got the Armory for $1 a year. $1 a year. That's a good no matter what realtor you're working for. It's not much of a commission, but it's a hell of a
Such a
deal for
deal.
the Boys and Girls Club. We got it. We cannot afford to lose it. Time is running out. There's a lot of us here that have put a lot of time in the community, tried to do things, and it comes down to one final thing. I tried to build a ballpark here up at on Coon Hollow. We got right to the point. We had it all ready to go. All we needed, we had money, we had grants. The city was behind us. It came down to an EIR, excuse me, for $65,000. We didn't have it. We lost something that could be there today for the kids. I'm running out of time. I'm getting old. I'm not up here to make any statement except the future's behind us. These kids have been sitting here for 2.5 hours tonight. One of their things is they want to come to the club because nobody gets kicked out of a Boys and Girls Club. Everybody is welcome. The biggest complaint we have, we're not open on Saturdays. They want a place to be. They're safe. We've been doing it in the past, we're doing it today, and we need to do it in the future. And if we don't, I don't want to see these kids get kicked out. I don't want to see them get kicked under the bus. We know we can do it. We can work it. The temp fees, as Joe said, we have the wrong model. Simple as that. The construction, Carter said $450,000. By the time we get it done, it's going to be $600,000. We don't have that kind of money. We need your help. The kids need it, and you are the people that's going to decide the future of these kids. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Vice Mayor, thank you for having us. Members of the council. First of all, I need to give it up for my kids that have been here for 2.5 hours. So good job, guys.
Sean, I know who you are, but would you please state your name?
Yes. My name is Sean McCartney, and I'm the executive director for the Boys and Girls Club. And it is my privilege every day to be able to go to work and work with kids like you see here, and work with a team of folks like my staff here that help us be great, helps us make a difference in these kids' lives, helps us ensure that no matter where you come from, you can go anywhere, that no matter how your day started, it can end good. We serve lots of kids every day, and our new building, this is a humbling opportunity for all of us, because this isn't just about our Boys and Girls Club, right? It's about the entire community. And it's about an opportunity for us to make a difference, and a difference in the lives of these kids right here, a difference in the lives of the kids that'll come 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now. And honestly, the folks behind me that have been supporting this club since 1995, since 1996, this is a legacy of theirs too. This is an entire community legacy that's happening. And I wanted to say a couple things. First and foremost, every day we do our best. We do our best for these kids because these kids deserve that. And I tell my staff every day, it doesn't matter what happened before you got to work, but when you're at work, you got to be there for our children. And these kids see it, they feel it, they know we care. And when they come to the club, we say hi, thanks for being here. And when they leave, we'll say we'll see you tomorrow. It's been a long night for all of us, but I really want to thank you boys and girls for being here. You're an inspiration to myself, you're an inspiration to our board, you're an inspiration to our staff, and hopefully you're an inspiration to this council to help us with this project. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, boys and girls, too, for showing up and for being such good kids while you've been waiting. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, is there anyone else that'd like to come forward?
The Boys and Girls Club is
Name,
not...
please.
Oh, Susan Rodman. And if the Boys and Girls Club is not a public purpose, what is? We support our schools. We support the county fairgrounds. Hello. We should contribute to the Boys and Girls Club, not charge them. If anything, the city should be... I don't think there should be any TIM fees charged. If I heard our attorney say, if it's a public purpose, we're not obligated to charge those fees. So I believe that the Boys and Girls Club is certainly a public purpose. Our schools are a public purpose. What's the difference?
Thank you, Mrs. Rodman. Does anyone else like to come forward?
Madam Vice Mayor, can I correct something?
Yes, you can.
I think the speaker misunderstood what I said, because I didn't say what she indicated I said. I said that the Boys and Girls Club could easily be determined to be a public purpose, and therefore this would not constitute a gift of public funds. I didn't say that that transmits to then we have an obligation or the right to waive the fees. We can do that, and it's not a gift of public funds, but the other issues I raised with respect to a fee waiver still apply.
Thank you. And I think we're probably going to come back to having you reiterate what you said. Okay, anyone else wishing to speak? Okay, with that, I'll close the public hearing, and I'm going to refer back to council and see if they have any questions. I'll start with Tricia.
Okay, I have a question. I was kind of hearing two different things. I think I heard our attorney say that for condition 28, that it could be eliminated or deferred, but then I think I heard Mr. Rivas say it could not be eliminated, it could only be deferred.
I'm reading directly out of our code 8-9-4, variance from construction requirements. And somebody had read earlier subsection C, where the city manager finds and determined that such requirements as applied would cause exceptional, extraordinary hardship due to the condition of the property or other circumstances. And then there's the second paragraph under that that is basically the enabling language that the city's been using for a number of years to obtain the street frontage improvement agreements. So it must have been this section then that was invoked on a number of different projects throughout the city where we probably have 100 different street frontage improvement agreements where it was determined under this section that the improvements required could be waived. So there's currently a street road frontage improvement agreement on the property requiring full improvements to Green Valley Road, including widening, curb gutter, and sidewalk. Staff is recommending a reduction that's only the widening, but that's just to meet the minimum city standards. But the variance shall not be granted or become effective unless an agreement between the property owner and the city is properly executed. So, in other words, the second half of that subsection C, where we can waive it, it's basically a deferral to where we would enter into a new street frontage improvement agreement based on the city standards that the city would feel is applicable to the project and to this particular road section. So they can be deferred. This section allows for that.
Okay, one more. Oh,
Can
sorry.
I just tag along on that a little bit?
Yes.
The section that Pierre was referring to gives the city manager the authority to defer the improvements under certain conditions. But the city manager does not have the authority to waive those improvements. The council, however, has the authority to do either. You can defer or waive. The city, under Government Code Section 40,401, can construct off-site improvements even if it benefits a private interest. So that's why I indicated that the council does have the ability to waive the improvements and ultimately construct those improvements on Green Valley Road itself.
So I have a question, but the city then would have to pay for it, right?
Correct.
And where would that money come from?
Well, if it was included on the TIM fee program at some point in time, it potentially could. But otherwise, it's going to have to come out of some sort of construction fund for road improvements.
Okay.
And another question about the model for the TIM fees. Is there a model that we can look at that would bring us to zero or down further from? I mean, I appreciate that was a big reduction from the original over 100,000 to the 62, but is there a model that we could use that looks at the actual usage, because it's unlike some other projects that would be using that model that would be different than 62,000?
Well, the model that the city used basically was to provide for what's in section 8-15-5, and that's the actual fee schedule, and it's an interim traffic impact mitigation fee. So it's, you know, it's basically due to be revisited and then have the model rerun, a new nexus study, and we probably need to revisit the capital improvement program that the city is proposing as well. So at least from the perspective of the age of these fees being adopted in 2008, they're probably very well outdated. As I said earlier, they're probably 31% below what they should be, just based on these fees that were provided for the various land uses. But it's really hard to say if the fee would come down. The fee could probably come down if our capital improvement program significantly reduced some of the more expensive capital improvements that the city is anticipating to build into the future. But there's so many different factors involved in that. It'd be an undertaking to revisit those fees, revisit the capital improvement program, redo the cost estimates, and then redo the nexus study, and then apply a new fee schedule based on land uses.
Okay, so going back to the pie, if we were to make the finding that it's a public, that this is going to benefit, the cost to our community, $62,000, how much would it cost to put the kids in juvenile hall, or to the tax on our police over time? It could be a bargain. So we're making up the money. So we lose the $62,000 and we have to make it up for in the pie. It seems like it would be worth it to do that. We'll find it if it comes to that. I guess I'll just tell you what I'm looking at right now. I like the change to condition 3. Condition 11, I would probably be in favor of waiving the TIM fees altogether, and then I'd probably be in favor of deferring condition 28.
Carol?
Thank you. I have a couple of questions for Pierre. So the city standard for Green Valley Road is based on what type of a road is it? Is it considered a arterial? Is it considered a highway? Is it considered a mountain road? I know there's different standards for different classifications of roads.
I believe it's a major collector.
So,
I'm sorry, what did major?
He said major collector.
Oh, collector.
So assuming that it was classified as a mountain road or a residential on a hillside road standards are different. Could you make a finding that since it is on a hill, it doesn't have to be 40 feet wide, it could be 30 feet wide? Is that accurate?
I would have to get back to you on that.
So to where I'm going with it is if the standard for the road is different than a major collector, then the standard of 40 feet can be changed to whatever a mountain hillside road standard is in our city. And it's much less. And I've bucked the fire department on this before because they always want a road that they can turn their fire trucks around on. Well, so I'd like the council to consider that. Because what I see is the idea for this road to ever be, I get before when there was an entrance from Green Valley Road into the project, I get the reason for a street frontage improvement at that moment in time. There is no entrance to this project on Green Valley, so do the frontage on Mallard Lane. I'd be in favor of a curb and gutter over widening the street, to be honest, but I'll leave that to the engineering. I think a 40-foot road is absurd. And then even if Joe Harn finds the money to do the bridge at Weber Creek, what are they going to do on the other side? You know, that's a really steep hillside. So I'm in favor of lessening the road frontage or the road improvement. I'm not even in favor of deferring a 40-foot road improvement agreement on this project. And as far as the TIM fees, because TIM fees are something that really everybody pays. And I don't think it's fair that these guys shouldn't not have to pay, because I'm guessing they're paying a lot of fees. Like they just talked about the $70,000 utility pole. Mm-hmm. But I like the idea of they're increasing their space by 5,000 feet. So charge them 5,000 feet TIM fees
It's 38,800. Just calculated it.
I did it, 38,000. But I was going to ask one other thing, and that had to do with what is the TIM fee for a residence? Per trip?
Well, the single residence currently is $14,256 $56 per dwelling unit. It's
14
not based on a square footage basis.
It's not. Do schools pay a TIM fee?
Public schools?
Yes.
No, I don't believe so.
They don't pay any TIM fees.
They're
Charlie
exempt.
would know. No?
A private school would, but not a public school.
Do we know what a private school would pay? Well, it doesn't matter. Okay, thanks. That was enough for me. Thanks.
Wendy?
First of all, I'd like to acknowledge and thank, all of you out in the audience tonight. What you do for our community is awesome. I mean, it really is. I know each and every one of you and all the other people that are a part of the Boys and Girls Club that aren't here tonight, you all have our utmost respect. And truly what you create in our community is you build families. And when you build families, you build our city. And when you build our city, you build our community. And we are all very cognizant of that. And as my fellow councilwomen beside me, I believe we absolutely should partner with you. Many of you have donated millions of dollars to this, and I do believe it is our duty to be a collaborative partner with you to help make this possible, because you serve our families. And I think the location of this is wonderful. It serves neighborhoods real close by where families can use your services. So many thanks to everyone that's made it possible. And great ideas, I think, coming from both of you. I do think that as you plan a project and plan your funding, it's really hard to plan it with an unknown quantity going forward. So I think I would be in favor of, I like the idea of having, if there's a model, if we can do it, and actually this stops at the city council, so having the TIM fee reflect the 5,000 square feet, which is about $38,000, and then having the city do the improvements on Green Valley Road later on and canceling that burden on the Boys and Girls Club. That's where I'm leading.
Okay. Through all of this, I've heard kind of like what ifs. And so I think, Pierre, some of the things that you said, and John, some of the things that you said to us, would it be helpful to extend this request another any portion of time? Would that help give our staff, us or whoever, to figure out, to work on these, figuring things out, instead of having us make and here we go back again to, we're up here wearing two hats, and I don't want to make a decision that's going to maybe jeopardize the future in all this area out there. I really, right now, I'm left with an awful lot of questions after hearing all this, and I'm wondering if more time would help in helping us all solve these problems that this contemplation. In other words, looking at it in a different way, or, decreasing it number of feet, as Wendy has brought up.
Staff would be more than happy to revisit these issues. One of the things that staff did not have privy to were anything submitted by the applicant in terms of the EID water line or the construction and nature of the retaining wall, if it would be required based on the slope of where the road widening would occur. Those kinds of statements, staff doesn't have any idea of what improvements are required on the property in terms of those other circumstances.
Well, I think that's what I'm getting at, because as far, this is, to me, I don't, this retaining wall that you're saying is, or they're saying is going to be required, I don't think that was a consideration of our staff. Is that right?
No, that's correct. Staff has not received
so
anything from the
and
applicant.
that's why I'm
so
saying that maybe
we'd like to work with them and do that.
We need a little bit more time to hash this thing over, so that we could really get some true figures, because right now it's kind of up in the air, and we don't know, exactly who's.
And there were some other questions in terms of the ultimate width of that road. It's my understanding that it's 40 feet, but we can certainly revisit that and come back with some more definitive answers in terms of what exactly is a classified what exactly is it that the county is going to be proposing. You know, it's our understanding after meeting with county staff that it was going to be a 40-foot road width, and we wanted our road then to be of the same width. The standard is, at least my recollection would be, were greater because the original street frontage improvement agreement required a lot more than just the widening of the road. It also required, in addition to widening the road, the curb, gutter, and sidewalk. But we can certainly take a look at that and come back to the council with a report. And take another look at the TIM fees. But basically, staff would have wanted to have a traffic study. If the traffic study could demonstrate that a lower traffic impact mitigation fee is applicable, then we could look at that, but we haven't received one. So staff on its own was attempting any way we could to reduce those fees, and I think we've reduced them quite substantially than just taking the typical calculation of a minor commercial use at $7.76 a square foot.
Okay, so then that was part of my thinking. John, did you seem like you want to?
Well, excuse me. The one concern I would have is whether or not the 2 weeks it would take to do this would impact the applicant in some negative manner. If it didn't, I frankly think that it would be time well spent, because I think the council's shooting from the hip a little bit, and
I quite frankly am.
And we need to make some findings. I mean, if the council's leaning in the direction of a $38,000 TIM fee based on the additional 5,000 square feet, we need to make findings that that is the appropriate formula for this. That, and I know Jim doesn't agree with me particularly, but that certainly would help a lot to alleviate this prevailing wage issue. And it may not be a huge amount of money in the overall scope of the project, but the labor code doesn't define what is de minimis. So, you know, you're at the legislature's will on that one, and some judge. So if we could do something like that, it could build in some protections. And I'm thinking if you're inclined to waive the improvements or not require the improvements on Green Valley Road, you could make findings that the project does not really impact Green Valley Road. It impacts Mallard and Green Valley Road to the west, I'm sorry, to the east of Mallard. So that portion could be, there'd be some basis for what you're doing. And I just think that's a cleaner way to go about doing it. So I guess the question I would have is whether the applicant can afford a 2-week continuance to bring back some findings and finalize this.
Well, okay, no, I was just going to say, since this is there's so many questions, I think it would behoove them to maybe find those 2 weeks. I know time is of the essence. I heard their words, but you know, I also think that we have an obligation to our city to make the right findings and not have anything, you know, out there questionable. Wendy?
So basically, could we direct staff then to look into how we could accomplish those 3 things? To modify condition 3 as requested, modify condition 11 to have the TIM fee based on the additional square footage, and delete condition 28, and direct staff to bring back those findings so we have a solid decision?
Certainly.
Okay. If that's agreeable to the applicant. That's the way I would be leaning.
So can I now bring back Charlie? Since you were the spokesman for the project?
There was quite a number of side conversations going on, so I missed what you had
John,
suggested.
do you want to clarify what we talked about?
Basically, I think what the council is saying is they direct staff to make determinations as to the reduced TIM fee based on the 5,000 square feet of additional footage, to not require improvements on Green Valley Road,
and then just modify 3 as direct
staff.
staff.
As staff's recommendation.
in essence, to prepare the necessary findings to establish that sort of a decision and bring it back in 2 weeks for their approval of those findings.
So basically, what we would be revisiting is just the TIM fees alone.
Well,
No, what I'm understanding the council to say is that we wouldn't
I'm sorry.
Green Valley goes off the
Please.
table. You don't have to do the improvements on Green Valley Road.
Yes,
Tim fee gets reduced to approximately $38,000.
yes.
And we bring
That would be- that
we
would
bring
be
back
awesome.
some findings and some bases for the council to take that action.
I'm sorry, could I have a little bit of order in the court? Charlie?
So, and the question is, can you wait 2 weeks for that final decision to come down?
Yes, we can wait 2 weeks.
Thank you. Wendy?
Yeah, just that way we have solid legal grounds on which to make those decisions, so we have a precedence too. And this is, we're conceding a lot here, and as a collaborative partner with you, and we want to make sure that we're on solid ground for the good of the project as well as for the good of the city. So, appreciate that time.
I would like to reiterate my comments about how the road is classified, because I think that's an important note, so that I think you could say that it's a major arterial from Mallard to Placerville Drive, but to say it's a major arterial from Mallard to, say, El Dorado Road or beyond Weber Creek, I think is a real big push. So I'd like, that may be a way to justify that TIM fee or the road frontage agreement.
And that's what I was thinking too, along those lines, Carol, when you brought that up, that, we've given staff some other direction to maybe look into this, and it might help.
But I do think that this project will generate additional traffic on Green Valley Road. However, I believe it will always be towards Placerville Drive. And I know that the bridge there at Orchard and Debbie is a problem still. And so that, that road needs some help. And I hate to just give it all up, because, this is going to impact that. However, I do believe in the whole community partnership, the city and the community partnering for this public project.
Okay, do I have a motion?
I make a motion that we send this back to staff to revisit condition 8, or 28, I'm sorry, condition 28 and 11, and then with the findings as discussed, and go ahead, and we can bring back condition 3 too, as stated by staff.
I'll second.
Okay.
And
Do I
does
need
that have
a-
to be to a date certain?
Do I need a poll?
No, not at this point.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I want to thank all of you for turning out tonight, coming out, and I hope you understand what the decision that we've made. It's to make this dream come true, and we really want to see it happen. We know the good that you do, and as a governing body, we also have an obligation to our government. So I thank you so much, and we'll probably see you again in 2 weeks. I'm sorry, John, did you?
As part of the motion, you're continuing the appeal for 2 weeks as well, correct?
Yeah, I think we have to have a date certain.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No?
We're fine.
Well, I'm sure you will, but shouldn't it be part of the
Should it
motion,
be
Cleve?
Would the motion maker in a second, do you need that, Susan? No. Oh, you have it? Okay. Okay, with that, thank you again. Okay, does somebody want to fetch our mayor? We're going to take a 5-minute break so that we can stand up.
It's hot.
Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you.
But I just hope he understands that what people.
No, really.
Hi, Dave. Hi, thanks for being here. No, I know. No, I understand that. You know, it also says excellence for us for all other entities. You have to be careful. Everybody.
Yep. No, it was good.
Not quite see it first, but 2 weeks ago, and I think the 2 weeks, I think the 2 weeks.
black. What?
Doing a good job on the call the meeting back to order, please? No. All right, the first thing we have to do is make a motion that we're going to continue this meeting. We'll be opening some new items after 9 o'clock. So if that's okay with the council, I would, by acclamation, go ahead and continue.
It could just
Another
be,
hour.
It could just be by consensus of the council.
Just consensus. Okay, we got it. 11.1, approved guidelines and application form. Mr. Morris for promotions.
I'll make this quick. You've seen my report. As you recall, we put $7,500 in our budget for community promotions. At that time, I recommended that we put together some sort of application process to determine how we distribute that. So that's what this item represents. I put together a brief application form and some basic guidelines. I'm open for any suggestions for changes or anything you might see you want to do to those. So.
Okay. Looked pretty good to me, so unless you've got a rewrite.
I got a few notes, Mr. Mayor. Sorry. All right. I think we
Better
ought to
be quick.
Okay, I'll be quick. I think we need to have the website and the email of the organization name on here so we can contact them in other ways. Also, a website's often helpful because you can look up. It kind of gives you a picture of the organization. Also, I found item 2 and item 3 kind of confusing. You know, maybe, because they seem pretty similar. On item 2, maybe describe your program and what you wish to accomplish. And number 3, how will you know if your program is successful and in parentheses, measurable objectives. I think maybe just breaking it down and making it a little clearer, people might be confused by that. So those were my, my comments on that.
Okay, so with those corrections and comments, do I have a motion? Are there additional comments and promotion?
Before we do, John, I was sent a letter, and I think maybe we
Was
should
an
acknowledge.
email from Kathy Lishman
Yeah.
Expressing concerns about the concept and indicating that, in her opinion, community pride does not belong in the category of community promotions grants, that is an official city committee and should not have to compete with other organizations for funding.
Okay.
I have a question too. This is about the 501c3s. When we were talking about this, we were talking about like the ice rink. They are not 501c3, are they? Does that mean they're ineligible?
But that's why I put in there, I didn't make it specifically 501c3. I believe I said designated nonprofit by the state of county or similar organizations whose programs and purposes are to promote the city or certain segments. And I was
They would
specifically
have that
thinking about
designation?
the business associations
Okay.
and the ice skating rink. That's why I added that language to that. So
Okay,
I
I
think
get
that
it.
covers it. But
All right, Carol?
I do have a kind of a follow-up to the letter from Kathy, and that has to do with is there any difference between the category of a city committee, as Community Pride is, versus like the Downtown Association or the ice skating rink? And where do they fall in that? Because I have to say, I do agree with her that the city Community Pride is a city-appointed group that should have their own budget. They don't do events that make money.
right. And you're right. And, you know, if you want to exclude them and, you know, either take some of this out for that before you, you know, take a certain amount out and then say we're going to use the remaining amount under this category, we could do that. Or you could identify some other amount under your contingency or whatever if you wanted to for that purpose and keep this at the 7,500. It's up to you how you would like to. Or you could say, yeah, we understand that, but we would like to see something from you as far as what you would like to do with the money, and then fill that out, and we'll consider that with all of the other things that come in. So.
I can't remember exactly, I apologize, but I thought that the city gave Community Pride money, and then, I mean, that was just part of the budget. And I thought I brought it up during the budget, but
Steve, can you answer that? They do have some funding, but and in the past, I think we have given them funding, but for several years we have.
Past 3 or 4 years, the city has not contributed, but past practice has been that prior to that, they did.
And they didn't really compete with the business associations.
Not
per
at
se.
all.
It was a separate, and I think that that's all that she's asking for, and I have to agree that since it does directly benefit the city, not the individuals, not that the business associations don't benefit the city also, but they benefit the individuals of that organization, whereas Community Pride is basically just the city.
Community Pride.
Yeah, so I think that it's important for us to distinguish that as something different and allocate its own funding. I think they should still have to, I think they do, they have to still put in, maybe it's through Steve's office, what they want to do with the money. They don't just get a check, do they?
Normally, that would be done through the
No.
budget process.
Right.
They would submit certain programs, projects they want to do, and that, we'd include that in our budget. We're
Okay.
kind of past that now.
In
but
the
we
days
could still do it.
before we did contribute, in the days when we did contribute, do you know how much, did we give them separate from other?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
You know what, I can't
It was a
remember.
budget item.
I don't know,
It's been
Dave,
4
do
years.
you
I
remember?
think
I
Dave,
do
you
remember
recall?
years
Dave
ago.
might have it.
Of putting on, I
Warren
remember my,
fundraisers.
Carl, we used to
garden
we used to cook hamburgers downtown on Main Street.
Yeah, during the antique fair. for
During the,
Community
yeah,
Pride.
and
I
that
did
was our
too.
contribution to raise money, so I don't know.
It was 5,000?
It varied between $5,000 to $10,000
Nice.
when the city contributed towards Community Pride before the Great Recession. It was approximately $5,000 the
And
last few
they
years.
used to do the garden tour,
Right.
and they raised a fair
And
amount
they
of money
raised,
through
yeah,
that.
they raised a lot of money.
That was when we
too.
had water.
Yeah.
So, but basically, they probably presented a project or a number or an item to us so that we could make a decision on how much it was, whether it's 5,000.
And that might be the way to do it, is to say, present the council or, city
Sure.
staff with your project, with a budget, and it will be separate and independent of this particular process.
Well, and just quickly, I might add that I think their priority project right now is the Bell Tower Garden.
The Monument
and
Garden.
Monument.
Garden. So if you wanted to do something, maybe you state that, we'll contribute this amount to that project, because or we could ask them to go back and submit something, but I'm fairly certain that's what they'll ask for.
Right, if they continue just their routine maintenance of the existing artwork and gardens, they probably got enough operational funds for a couple years, and then they'll be out of money.
Right.
And then their major focus is obviously the Monument Garden project right now, and they have a separate fund for that particular project from their regular operating budget.
Do they still conduct fundraisers like the garden tour or whatever to add to, is that how they're funding?
They don't do fundraisers, so to speak, but they're doing it through other mechanisms, through direct mail, phone calls, private solicitations specifically for the Monument Garden.
No, but I just meant for Community Pride, because they have other projects that, like you just got through saying, that they
No.
have to maintain. I
Yeah.
mean, they've got several projects, and I know it takes maintenance, and I know that they do a lot of volunteer, the volunteers do all that too, but I just,
Right, outside of the Monument Garden
Uh-huh.
campaign, they're not doing any other fundraising at this time.
Okay, so I'd like to have a motion. Yes.
One more question. I think it makes sense, perhaps, since our budget is already done, that maybe we allocate some money from this amount, and then next year revisit if we want to do that. But that way, we're not, behind the 8 ball and looking for money.
Works for me.
Right. And if there's excess at the January report, budget report coming up, the half-year report coming up in January, so we could possibly, if depending on income and so forth, we could possibly reallocate at that point.
okay, but along those lines, I also know that we've been asked for a sizable amount, probably this whole thing, to contribute, like Tricia was saying about the ice skating rink. I went to the World Gold Panning meeting the other night, and I know that they have done a presentation to the Economic Development Commission, and they're asking for a sizable amount. And so there's no way that we're ever going to be able to, oh, is it on? Okay.
No, but that's why you have this.
I understand, but
So-
what I'm saying is that now you're saying maybe, or Wendy,
I'm
you said
saying
to-
pride and joy, maybe we put some of this in, or we wait until January and look at the
Okay.
mid-year budget correction to see where we're at and see what they are. Because if it's gonna go toward the monument, it's not like they need it yesterday.
Exactly, so,
Okay.
yeah, okay, all right. Thank you.
So, we have a motion with corrections? Or,
Well, I'll make a motion that we approve these guidelines with Wendy's suggestions for editing items 2 and 3.
2 and 3.
And then also, or the staff's recommendations to appoint a council committee to review the applications. And then an amendment to the motion would be to establish a funding line item for Community Pride independent of the competition.
right,
So I don't know if I need to split those into 2 separate motions, or,
That's fine.
got it?
I'll second.
Okay. Moved and seconded, all in favor? It's not a money thing yet. So, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none? Okay. Item 12, council reports. Transit Authority. Trish.
I was in Orange County visiting my mom, and I missed my first meeting. I apologize,
Oh.
but I think that Vice Mayor Morelli was
You
there.
You didn't have to confess. But thank you.
I did attend, and yes, we had a meeting.
Okay.
And several decisions were made, but they're not, I don't need to tell you.
Not significant, okay. Transportation Committee, Councilmember Thomas, can you
Just-
report on that?
The main item was the, another look at the Beta Basin study, which will be out soon for everyone to enjoy, and really look forward to implementing, using that information to move our city and county forward economically. Really good information in there.
Oh, and it's just so important to our
Really good.
future. It really nails it.
Really had some good stuff in there, okay. LAFCO, did you have a meeting?
we did
since-
not, it's next week.
Okay. And SACOG, we had a meeting the same day as the Transportation Commission. We had a report, an update on the 2035 Metropolitan Transportation update of the 20-year study, which Pierre did an announcement early on this evening. And also, we have a meeting tomorrow afternoon. Pierre and I will be there, along with a few others, including Councilmember Thomas, setting up the parameters and the how that roundtable or discussion is going to be handled. So it's like a town hall meeting initially, and then it'll go into an opening thing there. And then SACOG, I have a SACOG meeting tomorrow also. And SEDCORP.
SEDCOR, we met, and they're making a big decision now on how SEDCOR is going to be run. And it was so lengthy that we opted to have another meeting, in which I'm going to attend tomorrow.
Find out how you're going to run this.
And find out how we're going to run this.
Run those meetings. Good.
And then I wanted to bring up too that I attended the Walk to School program, and it was, again, just so gratifying. I just love watching all those kids and their excitement, and everybody, you know, all the parents are there, and I just think it's a wonderful program. And then, as I mentioned before too, I did attend the World Gold Panning meeting, and they're presenting their budget. I tell you, this is a really huge undertaking, and the city is going to play a major part of this. So.
Also tomorrow, the Transportation Commission and others are going to be out at the Northside School for the opening of the trail, and they're going to do their walk to school tomorrow morning. And I was also at the walk to school function. First time I didn't actually walk to the school, but that's another story.
Carl, do you have a recollection of how long that long that project took?
Probably a good 8 years.
That's what I'm thinking.
7 or 8 years.
So this is quite an accomplishment.
Yeah, and it was pretty substantial. It crossed one creek, and it parallels Highway 49, so there's some environmental issues and as well as some other issues, and the expense was substantially more expensive than
You know, people just don't realize, you know, they think, oh.
just a little trail.
Yeah. And
Yes. Well, it's kind of like the trail in El Dorado Hills where the bridge across New York Creek is going to cost almost, what is it, 700,000 or 800,000? Something like that. It's pretty close to that. I mean, our
Who are you
Mr.
pointing to?
Yules, Steve Yules, he should know that right off the top of his head. What's it cost to put in a bridge over a creek?
Sorry, I'll have to get back to you on that one, Mr.
Okay,
Mayor.
good. But I believe it's plus, it's north of 500,000 for sure. All right, and request for future agenda items.
Yes, I do.
Okay.
I want to bring up the possibility of bringing it up for discussion, putting a no left turn or perhaps a right turn only, because that sounds friendlier, at Clay Street in Maine.
Okay. My comment is we're working on EIR and we're working on some other stuff.
My comment is that it would be really easy just to stick one in the ground and it could alleviate some of the problem in the meantime, no matter what we choose to do there.
Could be, I guess we could have the city engineer look at it.
It's a future agenda.
Yeah.
It might
Item.
it might be in the alternatives, though, when they don't, if they don't realign Clay Street.
The no do nothing option?
Do nothing.
Well,
yeah.
there was at one time to keep the configuration the same.
The do nothing option.
No, to widen the bridge, but keep Clay Street going straight.
That's not an
That's not
option.
in the
That's what I brought up
EIR.
last
Not
time.
in the EIR.
Is it or is it not?
It's not.
Not.
So,
So you're talking about just putting a right turn only on Clay Street now?
Yeah, just put it out
Just to-
there. We can have the discussion if that would be something the council would like to do, because I think it would be a really easy solution to a pretty big problem that we have right now.
Left turn lanes of Bear.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, I think the right turn has issues too, though, but, I mean, we can,
I think this is all part of the issue.
we'd have to look at the engineering on it because I think it's more than just that. Only because the amount of clearance space you'd need, you'd have to reconfigure the parking in front of that deli.
To just not allow people to turn left?
No, if you turn right, just the right turn only
right
is
turn
very
lane.
tight.
They're already turning right,
they're
though. They're
turning-
turning right and left.
I understand that. I'm just saying that to do it properly, if we put up a sign that may give a false impression or false security to people turning right, that they have enough room to do it when there's a car parked there. I'm saying that we need to have, I believe, we'd have to have a traffic engineer look at it and then decide, okay, can we do it? So if you wanted to bring that up, do we want to bring that up?
It's up to the.
No, it's up to council. It's up
Not
to the council.
staff. No, it's up to you.
Do we,
Okay, here we go again, all these questions. I don't know whether to approve something like that or not.
well, we're not approving it.
It's
I mean,
bring it back to the
it's
next-
approving to put it on for future, agenda.
So that we can have a discussion about
From a
it.
liability standpoint, you'd want to have a traffic engineer do
Right.
that if you decide.
and then
to-
there's an expense involved.
I mean, just to make sure that you're not creating or making a situation worse for some reason.
And it might muddy the waters while we're in the middle of an EIR on that
How
intersection.
close? Yeah, how close are we on the EIR?
Yeah. How close are we on the EIR?
It's hard to say. We have a sub-consultant that was actually working on the federal portion, the NEPA portion of the project, Sycamore Environmental Associates. And so PMC, which is the consultant that's doing the EIR for the project, needs those special studies, and they're on hold pending the city's determination of how the project will be then funded now that the CMAQ money has been pulled out of the project. So the EIR really isn't going anywhere at the moment, and so it's hard to judge.
So, it would take, in my opinion, probably what, a month and a half to 2 months before we got the engineer's report back?
And how would we fund that?
Yeah. So, at this point, I would
think I'd be in favor.
I don't know, I'm,
It's not anything personal against Tricia, but I just, because of all the other things that have been presented to us, at this time, I don't think that it's another thing we need to put on that list.
I think after the EIR is done and we know which direction we're taking with that intersection, I would, be in favor of looking at that at that
Exactly.
time, depending on which way the EIR goes and the council decision.
Right.
It seems like might muddy the water right now, though. And I sure understand what you're saying. Yeah.
It seems like such a simple thing.
Yeah. And without the funding identified to do that right now.
and that's, again,
Bureaucracy.
no, it's a combination of safety and bureaucracy, and it's the reality that you really need to do to make sure you really need to do it properly, do it right, so that we don't put the city at risk in the form of a lawsuit.
Which is what would happen.
Under risk management, right.
Yeah.
So, I
Good
don't,
idea, but
I don't see a move here, but
So I would like to request we bring back Resolution 8230 for discussion, which was the resolution to remove the roundabout from the Cedar Ravine Project EIR.
what's it, 80 what?
8230.
8230.
I would not.
I would not.
I would.
It's up to you, Mr. Mayor. That's why they call it the hot seat.
Yeah, it is.
Good night.
I could do the same thing I did.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
Just a matter of parliamentary procedure, for an item that's been voted on to be brought back, it needs to be brought back not by a member of the dissenting side. In other words, it would have had to be someone that approved it who would be willing to bring it back for discussion.
Oh, interesting.
Okay, so therefore.
Otherwise, things would come back over and over again
right.
by somebody who didn't get their
that's
way.
true.
So it's up to you whether to follow parliamentary procedure, but I feel
Would have to be
obligated to
you.
tell you
That'd
that.
be-
Yeah, so at this point, then I'll abstain again. So,
It's 2-2.
it's,
No, it doesn't.
doesn't
It
go.
wasn't brought
It has to be
forth
brought up,
because-
so it doesn't go.
Tricia can't, or Carol can't bring it back. 'Cause she-
Oh, okay. Gotcha.
Okay, there are no items pulled from consent. Was there anything else that we had under?
I have a question about that, though. I thought we moved it to right after consent.
We recommended, we didn't get that
I
done yet.
didn't-
We need to get it done. We will
I do
do that
that.
for the next agenda.
I have been doing it as a matter of course, so even though it doesn't say there, but
He
there
did
were
it
none.
tonight.
So,
Brought it back.
we didn't have any.
But we didn't have any.
City manager, staff reports.
I will make this quick because I know we've been here a long time. I wanted to get this information out. At your next meeting, we will have our pavement management consultant will be here to make this presentation of the full pavement management study that we received. This is just preliminary information that we have received. And I want to point out just quickly, the PCI number is the one that we've been looking at. That's kind of hard to see, but if you can see in the year 2015, they show the PCI at 48. This is if we don't increase any funding. And you can see in 10 years, 2024, it will be down to a 30. In 20 years, 2034, it will be down to a 20, which I describe as we really will be historic then, because we'll be back to dirt roads.
Back to
by
dirt
then.
roads.
So,
Get out the wagons.
Go ahead, Dave. This is, that's just a graphic showing the same thing. We'll move quickly through that. Go ahead, Dave. Scenario 2 is basically if Measure I passes, we have 1.7 million approximately for 10 years. That's the 1.5, this is the 75% plus the 200,000 we're currently putting in. You can see what this does. It brings our PCI up to 63 in 10 years, over the 10 years of that. However, if we don't continue that amount, you can see it goes right back down to 52 by the end of the next 10 years. So that's something we're going to have to look at after the first 10 years, assuming that Measure I were to pass. Go ahead, Dave. And then a graphic again showing what that would do. Next. Scenario 3 is if somehow we had for 20 years, 1.7 for 20 years, and you can see what that does. By the end of the 20-year period, we're then up to a 69 PCI, which is kind of an unwritten goal that I have kind of set. A lot of communities set an average of 70 for where they want to be for their PCI. So this gives you kind of a scenario of how you could get there and what it would be at that point. Next. Again, the graphic showing that. You see it kind of levels out after the last 3 or 4 years. It levels out at about 69 and kind of stays at that level. Now the one point, Dave, can you go back one slide, sorry? The one point I want to make is if you look at the deferred maintenance, and this is something I want to get an answer for, under this scenario, this doesn't show the deferred maintenance going down. You notice it stays at that high level, and we're working on getting an answer from the consultant, and next week we'll have a better explanation for that. But in general, I think what's happening is you're putting a lot of money into keeping your roads up that are up, but those that are beyond that routine maintenance are continually going down. So you're getting some better roads here, but your deferred maintenance that you've got here is getting worse and worse, so the cost to repair those is getting higher and higher as that goes down. So, but the consultant will explain that better. Go ahead, Dave. So scenario 4 is if we used the full 2 million, so all of Measure I for roads, and this shows for 20 years. This is just a scenario she came up with. And you see in this scenario, you're almost to 70 by within 10 years, and then you go quite a bit above 70. You go up to, was it 76 there? And you notice that your deferred maintenance goes down considerably. I'm still confused. I need to get better answers on this, but I want to show you this tonight on why the difference between 1.7 and 2 million in 20 years reduces that maintenance by that much. Where under the other scenario, it actually went up a little bit under the 1.7. There's a question that I have that we need to get an answer for, and we'll have it at the next meeting. And then I think the next one is just the graphic, and I think that's it, isn't it, Dave? Okay. Just some other graphs that kind of show those. But again, you'll get a better explanation of this at the next meeting, but I wanted to get this, at least this much information out to you tonight.
Will they show what PCI number 20 looks like versus 40 versus 50 versus 70? Those
We can ask them to do that. We had some examples of that previously, I think, that we showed. I don't know if we went clear down to a 20. I think we went down more like a 45.
That's the low end here.
Yeah, yeah.
Because that is realistic.
Right.
That's what you're basing it on.
Yeah, we can ask them to do that.
That'd be
So.
great.
We also have some of that at SACOG, and they're working on a shared services so that we're all using the same PCI index, that the numbers are the same, the conditions are the same, so that if the city of Placerville and the city of Sacramento are talking about PCI, that we're on the same page.
Should we?
Because we're going to be competing for funds, especially cap and trade funds are going to be done based upon a need basis at the regional level, so, or at the state level. So as long as we're all using the same
And
widget.
I believe we've changed what program they're using, and this is one, this consultant we're using, I think she does almost every city in Northern California. She does a lot of them.
That's a good
Every engineer I talk to, oh yeah, I know Margot, I know Margot.
Okay.
So, and the program she's using this time is different than the one we used last time because it's the one that most cities are using now. So
Okay.
it should fit with what you're
For
saying.
public information, should we expand on what PCI is? And we're talking in acronyms and
Pavement Condition
condition.
Index.
Yeah, all right.
And are we going to put this on our website?
We can. I'd like to get some clarification on a couple of those numbers first.
Yeah, after,
Okay.
but especially
if
as
it's-
people or as voters are maybe considering, Measure I, it would be good to
Right.
have that information
I think
available
that,
to them.
that's a good
Yeah.
idea.
We can do that, yeah.
Okay. Next is the oral report regarding potential conflict with November 11th. So I'm the only veteran up here.
Well, Tuesday, November 11th is a legal holiday at the city. If it's the council's wish, we could still hold the meeting that evening, or we could move it another day that week to Monday, the 10th, or to Wednesday, the 12th. We'd have to check on availability of this room. What we'll need to do on October 28th is adjourn to the correct meeting. So that's why it's on tonight's agenda, so we know on the next agenda what we're adjourning to. Keep in mind that the second meeting in November is Thanksgiving week. So there's a potential 2 conflicts there in the month of November. As you're aware, the election's November 4th, but the vote is not normally certified by the time of our second meeting in November. By the actual meeting date in November, we normally know the results, but the week before that, when we're doing the agenda, we don't. So normally the the certification of the vote comes in that first meeting in December. So if it's council's wish, we can either have a light agenda Thanksgiving week, try to put everything on the November 11th or another day that week meeting, but we sort of needed a decision this evening as to primarily what you want us to do with the November 11th meeting.
So, I'll speak first. I will be out of town on the 10th, so I will be in Boise. I won't be here, but I'll be back on Monday night. So, if you want to run the meeting without the mayor on the 10th, that's fine with me. And I don't mind coming in on Tuesday, the 11th. Even though I am a veteran.
What is staff's preference? I mean,
we're going to take a survey
Our-
here. It's
our
going to be
preference- Our preference is whatever you guys want to do. Was
I
that
think
politically correct?
Probably just to keep it on the 11th would be, even though we're off, it's just one day midweek. You're not going to have people probably going a long distance. I know I'm not, and Susan, it's okay with you, right? We'll make it work. So
how about Wendy? Okay.
They have a paper the next
We're-
day. to
we're-
get out.
we're-
That's right.
We're fine on the 11th.
All right,
If you
sounds
want to
good
keep
to
it
me.
there.
All right.
You're,
So, yeah.
Okay.
so,
Thank you.
pleasure is to keep it on the 11th. Tentatively, we're going to have the Extra Mile Day proclamation, hotel feasibility study, second reading of the employee housing ordinance, second reading of the ordinance eliminating a roundabout, and
That's it.
that's it? Okay. So, on October 28th, our next meeting, we will be here at 5 p.m. for closed session, 6 p.m. for regular session on October 28th. Good night. Thank you.
All right.